Welcome back to the Comics Aficionados live on Thinking Critical YouTube. I hope everyone is having a wonderful Saturday morning, afternoon, morning, one or the other. We had an interesting week in the comic book industry. There were some controversies. We have a lot of events on the schedule now, and we're going to cover it all. We're going to run it all down, and we've also got a special sponsorship, a Kickstarter campaign you're going to want to know about. We're going to get to those details here in a moment. But first, welcome to the channel, Sil Abdul. I was on your channel a few weeks ago talking about some DC Comics, DC movie stuff, and you're in the house today.
Yes, definitely. No, it's nice to be here, Wes and the crew. You really helped me with that episode, Wes, actually, expand my comic book type of shows. So thank you. And I'm here just to have fun chatting it up.
Absolutely. You got anything special on the YouTube channel that people need to know about right now?
It's been pretty crazy with this Black Adam, Superman stuff. On my channel, just briefly, I cover a lot of reports like production tips and stuff like that. So we've been talking about the surprise at the end of Black Adam. I guess I shouldn't spoil it, I guess. There's a surprise at the end of Black Adam.
Spoiled it.
Too late.
Okay, sorry. So Henry Cavill's in post-credit scene, right? Well, I had the scene details 2 months ago, right? And so that's really blown up on my channel now that we had a good insider with that. And so we just having fun, Finally, they're bringing Superman back and not erasing them or gender swapping them or something like that. So good stuff.
Definitely check that out if you want the latest in the scoops regarding the DCEU. Sil Abdul's definitely got all of those. Returning to the channel, we've got MVP Maxfield Bod Priestley, the man with the most devious name in all comic books YouTube. How you doing, MVP?
I'm doing well. Sorry, guys. My apartment's going a little crazy right now, so I'm going to stay on mute until this testing is done. So
apparently they're testing the fire alarms or something like that, but definitely check out MVP's channel. Got a lot of good streams. If you like to take a couple of hours, get some comic book news and information, MVP's channel is definitely the one for you. We've also got Gabe from Comical Opinions, the Weird Science DC. How you doing, Gabe?
Happy Saturday. Thank you for having me on the show again. 2 weeks in a row. I hope it's not becoming a habit. I don't know. We'll see.
You want to be a regular? Is that what you're saying?
No, I didn't say that at all. Stop twisting my words. It's too early to start twisting my words.
What it sounded like.
Did you read ISOM yet? Did it smell better after you read it?
I did read these ISOM, and if you go to comicalopinions.com, you will see the review. I'm not going to spoil it here. You have to go to the website. So,
all right. If you want to hear Gabe crap all over ISOM, you got to go to Comical Opinions. Or maybe he praises it. One or the other.
You'll find out.
And last but not least, Doc is in a mood. If you saw him on social media this week, he's decided to give up on new comic books forever. We'll see if that one holds. We actually had a conversation earlier that's going to go up tomorrow. It's going to be Doc unedited, uncensored. I will not be doing anything. It's just going to be Doc's words, unfiltered. How you doing, Doc?
I'm fine. Not having to spend money on new comics kind of makes me happy.
Well, it certainly saves a few pennies in your pocket. Definitely appreciate Doc for joining me. You guys are going to want to watch that video tomorrow. Josh is supposed to be with us, and I do imagine eventually he will be here, but he's having some issues, and he hasn't been able to make it to the stream yet, but we should see Josh, the DC Comics aficionado, in the not-too-distant future. And I do want to give a special thanks to award-winning screenwriter Frank Zankin and Destiny Horizons for sponsoring today's live stream. Frank just launched his latest Kickstarter campaign for Tales of Ravenor, the Iron Witch, which is a novel. If you support the campaign during today's stream, you'll get a big shout out live on air from the crew, and I definitely appreciate that. And we've got a special little presentation about that. You already know I am an enormous fan of fantasy comics, books, movies, all that stuff. Award-winning screenwriter Frank Zanka and Destiny Horizons have a new crowdfunded YA fantasy novel you're going to want to check out. Tales of Ravenor, the Iron Witch on Kickstarter. You probably recognize Frank from his Destiny Aurora graphic novel. Learn the story of Threa, a seemingly common woman with a magical past, as she explores the realm of Ravenor and its kingdoms. If you're a fan of magic, dragons, action, all that good stuff, you need to support this book. Go to Kickstarter today and back Tales of Ravenor, the Iron Witch YA fantasy novel. It really would mean the world to me if you could support the sponsors of Thinking Critical, who allow me to keep delivering the best comic book content on YouTube each and every week. Definitely
nice.
Go check that one out. And I do want to say this is this is Frank's, I believe, his 10th campaign. He's fulfilled multiple campaigns for comic books, novels, board games, all that stuff. So you're guaranteed you will get your product. It's basically done. I think it's in the final edit or whatever. But Frank is good to go. Go check it out on Kickstarter. There's a link in the video. There's a link. You can see it there. I'll also put it in the video description after this. I do appreciate them for supporting the channel, and big shout outs. What do you think about that one, MVP? Looks pretty good, huh?
That looks great. It actually reminds me of Enemies of Self, Shadow of the Conqueror, which is Shad Brooks's Kickstarter campaign, or sorry, excuse me, Indiegogo campaign. Shad Brooks has a fantastic YouTube channel, and he wrote a novel and then is now making it into a graphic novel, all fantasy based, all in his own world that he's created. So yeah, it reminds me a lot of that. But yeah, great little voiceover. That was cool.
Yeah, it's always fun to get to do those things. Frank's a really great guy, and definitely I hope you guys are able to support him. It is Kickstarter campaign that's live. It just started, I think, yesterday. So big time stuff going on there. We do have a few super chats. Let's get to those. We got Eric O'Sullivan in the house, the Sultan of Soup himself. Have we heard anything about Black Canary's 75th anniversary this year? A strong, stunning, and brave golden age superheroine. First appearance, Flash Comics 86, August 1947. Good morning, chat and panel. I haven't heard anything about that. Have you, Gabe? It seems like all they care about is Nubia this year.
Not a peep. Well, yeah, we had Nubia.
They didn't do anything for
Harley
Hawkman
Quinn?
and Hawkgirl for their 80th anniversary last year.
Marvel was doing a little bit more. I mean, they did the Ant-Man miniseries with was that Peter David? I think it was, or Al Ewing. I forget exactly who wrote that. But yeah, for Black Canary, nothing. I haven't heard a peep. That's not to say something won't happen, but I haven't heard a thing.
Yeah, I haven't heard anything either. So that's disappointing. I'm sure they'll put a cover out and say that's how they celebrated the character. That's really what they do.
They ain't gonna do shit. But the publishers don't do things for characters that are over. Like that people actually like. They will constantly try to celebrate the anniversary of characters that can't get over to save their lives. And granted, it's kind of an amusing irony because it's basically them pointing out, hey, we've had this character for 50 years, 75 years, 80 years. Guess what? Nobody still likes them.
Yeah.
Well, maybe they'll do a team up one shot with Black Canary and Vixen written by T. Franklin.
Boom.
Oh, no.
That'll do it. People are getting excited about that one.
I'll buy that.
Thank you very much to Eric O'Sullivan and everyone for supporting the channel here today. Retro Man says, I read the Captain Marvel tie-in to Judgment Day, and believe it or not, Doc, she passed. Can you believe Captain Marvel was judged and be found good?
It's 2022 Marvel. There was no chance of her being judged anywhere otherwise. All she had to do was show up and be like, but I am a woman.
It doesn't make sense, Doc, because I've been reading the Judgment Day series, and he's in the big progenitor guy decided the entire world was bad and basically sentenced everyone to death.
Yeah,
at the same time.
Because they can't publish comics on a schedule to save their lives either. They published that book after the fucking plot point where everyone was deemed unfit and we're gonna nuke everybody. And she got nuked in an issue that actually came out a week or two before because she got like blowed up in Acts 5 or whatever the fuck it was. I can't even keep these issues straight because nothing happens and we're 5 issues in.
Yeah, that thing is it's a cluster, Doc.
Mm-hmm.
Common Sense says Lin Lee Swordmaster can lift Mjolnir. Is it okay to say that Alyssa Wong made Lin Lee into a Gary Stu? He got 2 powers and he can lift Mjolnir to perfect. It's crazy because Lin Lee Swordmaster was kind of a cool character. He had like the shards of the sword that were magical in him, and he had like kind of a purpose. But now that he's Iron Fist for no reason, and now he can lift Mjolnir.
I'm sorry, Wes. Can you say he can lift what? Can you say that word again?
It's Mjolnir, right?
Yes. I'm just having fun listening to you pronounce that word. That's great.
You pronounce it better.
Mjolnir. Mjolnir. Mjolnir.
Mjolnir.
Mjolnir.
Mew
Meow
mew.
meow.
Meow meow.
Meow.
Wow.
This thing has officially gone off the tracks.
Lin Lee officially sounds like Human Torch and Fantastic Four Part 2 back in the day. He's literally has every power now. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, I mean that whole Lin-Lei as Swordmaster changing over to Iron Fist was a completely unnecessary mantle change. He had his own mantle. He had his own powers. He was unique and separate and different from Iron Fist. So to morph him from one to the other in a really on the nose, ham-fisted way was completely unnecessary. I'm sort of disappointed in how that whole thing played out.
Yeah,
Well,
I'm sorry if you read it. That's all I can say.
Remember, this is just comic publishing's trick. You have a character that nobody gives a fuck about that you want to be a thing, so you just keep slapping powers on them until because this is what they believe is the solution. It's the reason what they've been doing to Carol for like 10 years. Well, nobody likes her like this. All right, give her more powers. Give her more powers. Make her stronger. Give her more powers. Eventually, she'll be so powerful that people have to like her, right?
I think that's the plan.
Right?
David also said, I just saw Scar in the She-Hulk show. Look how they massacred my boy. Where's the rest of his hair? MCU can't give him Conan-style hair or a wig. Why MCU? So I didn't watch She-Hulk, but I know that Gabe, you did watch She-Hulk and you enjoyed the finale, right? What happened to Scar? Uh-oh.
Where to even begin? I mean,
that finale. Okay. Oh boy. They put Scar in there. He's in there for like 5 seconds. There was no reason for him to be there. None.
It was no reason.
Literally, he just walks in the frame, looks there at the camera, and then that's it. There's no reason for him
like
at
Kevin
all.
Feige?
This was probably one of the worst episodes, and it's not a good series.
It was.
But
Okay. So I don't.
Let it go, man. Just let it out. I want to hear. How do you feel? How do you really feel?
Oh man.
You feel like you wasted time?
Yes. Yeah.
Right.
Okay. All right. Yes. Okay. So people have rules about how they live their lives and how they interact with content and everything else. My number one rule is don't waste my time. Don't show me something that's just going to turn out to be nothing. I had that sort of reaction with Tom King's recent miniseries. Was it Batman Killing Time? When it turned out to be literally, it was just nothing but killing time. If you made it all the way through to that series, it was just yeah. I mean, literally, that's all it was. And I think he was getting off on some kind of weird meta joke about the title. This finale basically says, I know people are saying it's a meta joke. What happens is She-Hulk breaks through the fourth wall and says, "This finale is stupid. This big battle is stupid. It doesn't make sense. Let's just rewrite it." And then everybody just gets together at the end with a barbecue.
Oh my god!
That's it. They just throw everything out, and so people are saying, "Well, it's a meta joke. You're not supposed to take it seriously," and that's the problem. It is a meta joke, but it wasn't pulled off very well, and B, the joke is really on the fans of the MCU. We are the butt of the joke. We are the punchline, because what the show is trying to tell you with that message is none of this matters. If you've put time and energy and money and an emotional investment and all these things into the MCU, it's all a goof. Stop taking it so seriously. None of it matters. So we can just do anything, throw it at the wall. And if you're taking it seriously, you're the problem, not us. That's the message they're giving you. And just after that, I watched that episode, I felt like a knot in my gut to say, this is what you think of your audience?
We knew that though.
Yeah, but I want to tell them to say, take this seriously. You know, people say, why are you taking it so seriously? It's not that the content needs to be serious. I'm okay with jokes. I'm okay with humor and lightness and all those other things. But I want the creators to take the execution of their craft seriously. This felt like they had no plan, they had no story, or whatever story they had was so terrible that they had to completely rework it. And they just said, well, this is as good as it's going to get. And they just threw it out there and said, okay, well, maybe we'll do better in season 2. But that's what that felt
literally.
Hold on, fellas. He just gave his rundown on She-Hulk. We might talk about it later, but let's get through a couple more of these super chats so we can talk about Jon Kent being canceled. Kenneth Dowling says, "Hi, Wes. Good to see you. Hello to the rest of the panel. Glad to join the stream this morning. And Doc Uncensored, you're going to lose a lot of money." We've already recorded it, and basically, I mean, it should be good for viewing, right, Doc? You weren't that
I think
outbound.
so too. I don't think I said anything even remotely like offensive to anyone except for people in comics.
Well, it was probably offensive to the leaders of Marvel and their writers, but other than that,
That's what I mean. Like the people in comics that are producing these comics are going to be offended because I've basically run down everything about their actual profession and what they're doing. Like professionally, they are worthless and should be not in this industry. They do not deserve to be in it, and they.
All right, don't give it all away, Doc.
Yeah.
Yep, got the whole video to watch that one. Late Paper says, "Is Jon Kent a miniseries Superman now?" Yes, they gave Jon Kent and Tom Taylor a pity miniseries to follow up after it got canceled. We're going to talk about that in a second. Officer Buck Tudressel. That's a pretty good name. So there's Scarlet Witch, the TVA, and now the fourth wall breaks. Am I forgetting any other things introduced in Phase 4 that make the MCU stacks meaningless now?
Stakes.
The TVA did it for me.
Yeah,
I mean, there were sort of stakes in Doctor Strange 2, I guess, but the multiverse kind of made that go away. So it made it possible to undo it. And plus, if you didn't watch WandaVision and you try to watch Doctor Strange 2, you're going to be completely lost.
Well, if you watch WandaVision and watch Doctor Strange 2, you would be completely lost. So
yeah, because
you won't be lost if you took notes, but if you didn't watch it, you're definitely going to be completely lost.
They've definitely taken a big dump on basically all the MCU fans and all the work that they did for like 8 years. So that doesn't make any sense. Nerdy Girl Creates Carrie says, "Doc for head Marvel editor."
Got my vote.
Oh, I don't know about that.
God bless her.
Let's not talk crazy.
If they want to make money and sell comic books, sure. Okay. If they want to be the equivalent of roadside attraction pamphlets in a rest stop, so that people will go see their movies and buy their lunch boxes, then no.
Cobbin says, if there's a Jurassic League sequel, who do you want in the team? For me, Shazam, Metamorpho, Black Canary, Ray. Does Vixen work as a cave woman, or that too? Or is that too OP?
Oh, I like his lineup right here, or their lineup.
Well, if they were going to do a sequel, I'd rather Daniel Warren Johnson take over the book himself rather than just co-writing it. Both writing and illustrating, because the book was sort of bland, except for the dinosaur parts, and it just lacked his style and his wit and his sense of drama. It didn't have any of those extras, so it was just sort of more like a kid's book than anything else.
Definitely, you could feel there was less love for this than like do a Power Bomb, which came out this. week.
Yeah, or Beta Ray Bill. I mean, if you could translate that emotional gravity from Beta Ray Bill into Jurassic League, that would be a much different book.
Absolutely. So that's a good lineup. We'll see what happens there. Common sense. It seems like it was relatively successful. But let's get into the big topic. We had Superman, Son of Kal-El, canceled at issue number 18. The big announcement came out. I guess there's been a to-do about that. It's made headlines. There's been articles about it. Rich Johnson has lost his mind. I'm going to talk about that with Aaron Sparrow on Monday. And Tom Taylor claims that there were no problems with sales, Gabe. Even though with everything going on at DC Comics right now, if they had a hit series, there's no way they would cancel anything, to relaunch it as a mini series and get it out of the way. But he says because it was the number one selling book on Amazon for an hour, one time during the month, that there's no issues there with sales.
West, I'm going to have to insist you remove the word canceled from that headline, because that's a gross mischaracterization according to Tom Taylor. And I support all the things that DC does.
Now write the check.
There is no reasonable assessment of this whole Jon Kent Superman Son of Kal-El series where somebody thinks that stopping an ongoing, which was always advertised as an ongoing from the very beginning up until now, stopping it, retitling it to a 6-issue mini, and somebody saying, well, it didn't cancel. It wasn't canceled. It was just evolving into something better. There is nobody on Earth that has two brain cells to rub together that comes to that conclusion based upon what happened. I understand spin. I understand Tom Taylor being defensive because of all the pressure he gets from all different angles. I understand Rich Johnston is Rich Johnston, and we'll leave it at that. Maybe we'll talk about it later, but I'm not sure. But yeah,
Aaron and I are going to talk about that when it's full. It's going to be funny.
Yeah, it is an ending. If you don't want to call it
Mhm.
cancellation, it is an ending, and it is an ending because the book did not sell well.
You have
Now you can have all kinds of conversations about the content and the focus and who was gay and not and everything else. That's fine. The book did not sell well, bottom line, and that's why it's ending.
you have an industry that is completely in denial about its own failure, that has redefined the concept of success to literally turn it upside down. You now succeed by getting books let's see. You start your career on flagship titles when you have no experience. When you improve, quote unquote, improve, you go to cancellation. When your next level of success is not an ongoing, they have turned the entire concept of publishing and everything that has been the measure of success and career progression, publishing patterns, completely on its head in the last about 10 years in order to compensate for their own refusal to accept that what they're doing is failing by every other measure for the last 1,000 years since fucking the printing press was invented. Success was measured in selling more copies than the previous, making something that was short-term, long-term, improving, working your way from the bottom up to the big thing. That was the way that all of publishing has worked for the entirety of human history until the comic industry, full of a bunch of delusional children, took over and decided to redefine success. Failure is success and success is failure now. And once you accept that these people are idiots in denial about the actual objective situations in the comic industry, nothing they do will ever make sense. But once you accept that that's who they are, you're like, oh, it all makes complete sense. And you stop even getting upset about it because you're like, oh, a bunch of retards are doing retarded shit. Shocking.
Twitter, when Tom Taylor was on Twitter, he even said something like, we're just retitling it because we want to give John his own title. And I was like, it's been his own title.
Good
it was never, it was never anything like the Superman or so. Like it was Jon Kent, Superman, son of Kal-El. Like this was his specific title. So he's just gaslighting at that point.
Yeah, well, first off, Doc's getting warmed up, so this is worth the price of admission right now. So this is awesome. No. But as far as with this, it's about participation trophies, right? That's what's going on here. Like Jon Kent is not a bankable, character. All they're doing is delaying the inevitable, where this miniseries is going to suck in sales. And then it's actually affecting Tom Taylor, like his legacy. I'm being really honest, that's not even a hyperbole right there.
Fucking legacy.
Because I've been a fan of Tom Taylor with the Deceased series, and he's done some other good stuff. He's made that I was like, Jon Kent was actually good in that series, and he's killing, I think, his own legacy as a writer. And Jon Kent is, DOA at this point.
Well, they just had the movie still, and it sounds like people were upset that the Jon Kent that's in Superman, Son of Kal-El wasn't in the movie, so they ended up blowing up in their faces that way when he could have been kind of a bankable character for kids.
Yeah, it could have been easy. The TV show, you mean, the Superman and Lois, or
the Challenge of the Super Sons?
The
the
animated. Okay, that Super Sons was good as well too. Let's see who did that.
That was Peter Tomasi.
Tomasi, right? And I love Tomasi's run. They had something right there with Jon Kent and Damian Wayne, right? And they really killed the Jon Kent character, man, just for the sake of politics.
I hate that. I hate to say it, brother, but the idea of Tom Taylor having a legacy because he's written one thing competently and
people
a bunch
like Injustice, Doc.
Injustice is literally copying someone else's script. Yeah. I'm not giving him. There is zero chance I am going to give credit for plagiarism. Fuck that. Everything else he's ever, that's like trying to give Leah Williams a legacy because she didn't write absolute shit on Amazing Mary Jane because it was the one thing she could competently write. Everything else is terrible, the same way that everything else Tom Taylor writes is terrible. What fucking legacy, man?
I'll give him 15 minutes, Doc.
Plus the fact that
15 minutes of fame.
plus the fact that he's been in the industry for about 15 minutes.
And you know
I
what's
mean,
funny
you don't
is,
have a
like,
legacy in 15 minutes.
the thing that you mentioned, Wes, in your video, and what I thought was brilliant is, like, you know, a lot of people will attribute this like cancellation to like, oh, well, you guys are just a bunch of bigots because you don't like that John is gay or bisexual or whatever. But this series wasn't good since issue 2 for me specifically. Issue 2, like when you have Superman and John sitting on the moon, and like Superman is just like, you're the new Superman, John. You're better than I ever will be. And he's calling out his dad, and he's going,
You
"What
never
do
did
you ever
anything
do,
to save
Dad?
anybody.
You never did. What do you do with your powers?" And he's like, "You're right, son. You're the one who's going to do everything." And I'm just like,
I hate when they job Superman.
oh my God. So if people want to point fingers and go, well, you're just blah, 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 look to issue 2, man. And already it's bad.
That
You
issue
want, you want me to
video on
spill
it.
some? You want me to spill some tea? Want me to spill some tea?
Please
Is it critical
do.
exclusive?
Here
Okay.
for the tea.
You only get this kind of information when you are a Patreon subscriber to Weird Science, because we have a Slack and we share all this information. We reached out to some contacts that we have in DC. No names. No names. Okay, but this is coming from contacts we have inside of DC. They said Tom Taylor was blindsided by it changing up and is pissed because he was promised it would keep going. They also said this is one of the worst selling ranked Superman books of all time. This is coming from inside DC. They freak out if
That's what I
any.
said.
They said DC freaks out if any Superman book drops out of the top 50, and they really freak out if it goes below the 100. One of these creators also said, this is coming from, again, inside DC, any publicity is good publicity, but publicity without sales is garbage. I'm changing the language there a little bit. He claimed that most of the publicity, for the book was confused by most of the public as Kal-El being gay, and DC higher-ups did not like that at all. Also coming from another editor, again, contacts in DC, they both said that DC looks at John as Superman as a, quote, fixable failure. So,
No. Well, there is a fix. They just won't do it. So there's a fix. It exists.
I'm not naming
They won't do
names.
it.
I'm not confirming any of these contacts, but these are names that we trust.
Yeah.
So, again, Patreon, Weird Science, you'll see this stuff all the time.
Look,
I'm sold.
Tom Taylor would use literally anything to excuse his own failure. He's done it for his entire career so far. He would find the exact moment and second where the most number of that Superman Son of Kal-El sold the most, and been like, Superman Son of Kal-El was the #1 selling comic on the planet at 11:17 a.m. on Tuesday, November fucking 11th.
Snapshot.
That was a personal favorite video of mine to make, Doc. Just poking holes in his stupid story.
I know it would be like, if he could suddenly find, 8 copies sold at this exact second, and actually only 6 copies sold at this exact second of like fucking Berserk or Chainsaw Man or some giant fucking Dog Man. I outsold Dog Man. Yes, at this exact second. That's it. Only at that second. At every other second before and after, it outsold you. But you got it for 1 second. If you go and take the smallest possible still frame snapshot of all of human history, it was the #1 seller in that exact picosecond.
Well, the worst part is, Doc, is the mindless Muppets that sit there and look at that, and they don't think about it for 1 second. What does it mean to say I was the best, or Superman Son of Kal-El was the best-selling Amazon book? Well, that's mostly digital sales. Digital sales are minuscule compared to physical sales when it comes to comic books in North America. Amazon updates their bestseller list every hour on the hour, and DC runs unopposed from Marvel Comics for 24 hours every single week.
Additionally, one other thing to keep in mind, that is not an indexed list whatsoever. There is no context to it. It could be 9 copies sold as the #1 thing, or it could be 9 million. You don't know, because all it is the number one sell. It's a rank of either the shiniest diamonds in history or the least stinky shits. You don't know. For context, like a ranking list only matters when you have at least one piece of data to correlate that to. If you knew yes, if you knew that the number 5 sold 20,000, okay, the number 4, 3, 2, and 1 sold more than that, and 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10 sold less. But you don't know. You have no ability to quantify it, no ability to contextualize it. And all they give you, like, I got into this fucking fight with Heidi McDonald a couple of years ago. She's like, yeah, look at this. It's the number 1 selling thing on Amazon. I'm like, compared to what?
Right.
What is the number 1? How many units is that? I don't know if they're selling 6 or 6 million.
They think the comic book community is dumb, basically. They're treating the community dumb.
Well, that's because they're retarded. Yeah. Stupid.
And the info
people.
you put out with Tom Taylor, I think he thought he was going to be insulated because of this, this virtual signal, and I guess DC probably feeling the heat of the new management as well too. It's like, we're going to pull the plug on this as well. I mean, it's probably different factors, but for you saying Tom Taylor was pissed, that's the biggest news I heard.
The factor is that it didn't sell. If it sold well, they wouldn't reboot it. They wouldn't cancel it. They wouldn't change it to a miniseries.
Right. And there are two key areas here where, I mean, books come and go all the time. That's nothing new.
Mm-hmm.
But what I find disturbing about this situation, there are two things that I find disturbing about this situation among many. Number one is Tom's not an idiot. At least I don't think he's an idiot. I don't know him personally, but he's not an idiot. He knows this is a reflection of poor sales, yet he keeps pushing the narrative anyway. And to me, that's, I mean, there comes a point where you just take the L. Just take the L. So that we did our best. We tried to do something. You guys didn't like it. Okay, well, in the miniseries, maybe we'll try something better. Maybe you'll like this better. And if you like it, support it. Try to interact in a supportive way with the buying audience instead of saying, no, this isn't happening. Don't believe your lying eyes.
And I would buy that.
Yeah, that's the absolute wrong approach from Tom Taylor. The second thing is what I find distressing, maybe that's the right word, is now I see all these conversations coming up that says, well, it didn't sell because Jon Kent was gay or bisexual, whatever he is. No, they didn't sell because the stories were terrible. The stories were just terrible. He didn't do anything of substance. He didn't establish himself as a hero. He didn't find some way to ingratiate the reading audience with him as a character that you want to get behind, that you want to support, that you want to see more of. The stories were just sort of up and down and ethically weird, and cozying up with his pink-haired boyfriend who's part of like a terrorist organization, and all this other stuff. Is like, why would I want to care about this character? And so now, because now the cancellation gets conflated with, well, people didn't like he was gay, so that means everybody's a big. There are bigots out there. Nobody's saying that there aren't. But when you basically create a terrible story that nobody really likes that much, and say, well, that's why people didn't read it, then now you create a false comparison, and I think that's a shame, because I think Jon Kent is salvageable, but you have to tell better stories. You have to tell better stories. If you don't, then you might as well just hang it up.
I'd love to kind of piggyback off of what you were saying, Gabe, because that to me is one of the biggest things right now that is, I guess you could say, plaguing the industry, and that's disingenuous lies from creators, because what Tom Taylor is doing is totally disingenuous and inauthentic to his fans, to the comic community, to everyone. For him to be like, everything's fine, nothing's wrong, while the whole city behind him is burning. If you were to just say, hey guys, thank you so much for supporting me. Thank you for giving me this run on Superman. It's been a blast. We're going to come back in January. You guys are going to love it. Thanks again. Totally different tone and totally different reception from people and from him. But for him to say, like, comic sales are fine, stop worrying about everything, and all this like BS, it's so disingenuous. And I keep hearing this over and over and over again, that floppies are doing fine, but we continuously see on Comic-Con and on ICV2 or IVC2 and like on Amazon, if that's really a real source of how we want to get our comic book, but
useless.
Yeah, on all of these different platforms, we see that the comics are selling for more money, but for less actual units sold, and that's from like all these different, comic book actual retailers.
And that's with
So
the billion variant covers on every single comic book now, too.
exactly, with a ton of variants, and each variant is like $1 priced up and everything. So it's so frustrating to hear people in their own industry like not accepting the fact, because it only hurts everyone in the long run if we're not able to see what the issue is, and that is that floppies just aren't doing as well as our trade paperbacks, which manga is now considered as. So I just wanted to piggyback off of Gabe, because like you said, man, I think that's such a great point, that he just keeps like digging himself this hole of like, it's not canceled. It's not canceled.
He just needs to stop. He just needs to stop.
Well, he's been
Just-
doing this for months now. Every few months, he gaslights people when someone says the sales aren't very good, when they provide the proof, and then it gets blows up in his face when it's so easily refutable.
Yes.
And little birdies are telling me that attitude is also not making him any friends among his comic pro colleagues as well.
Well,
Interesting.
here's the thing to keep in mind. You got an entire industry essentially run by and acting like children and narcissists. Do you know what anybody on the Cluster B schedule does whenever you point out a failure to them? They flip the fuck out and make any possible explanation. Look, I'm not trying to armchair psychoanalyze the guy, but it's very clear when you have people that are of a certain type, whenever they fail and you point out what you warned them that they were going to fail, you pointed out all the ways that it was going to fail, and then it happens, they lose their fucking mind because they were sure it wasn't going to happen, because they've deluded themselves, and they will twist and turn everything every conceivable way to not acknowledge that they fucking failed.
Yeah, I'm sure some type of personality type that Tom Taylor has. Like I majored in psychology, but I didn't finish. But it's something where you don't accept that L, basically, because like literally me being a fan of Tom Taylor before, if he would have kind of just said, hey, we tried, like y'all said before, appreciate the success. Let's try this miniseries. I probably would even look at that miniseries just to be like, hey, good on you, Tom Taylor, accepting that L, and I'm gonna give you another chance. But I'm not gonna look at this miniseries at all because of the sheer attitude, that Tom Taylor's putting out there.
I'll give you an example. You know how this failure is fixable? I'll give you a perfect example of very quickly with one tiny small change. This failure is fixable. Move Jon Kent over to Webtoon. Convert it into like a slice of life. If you want to pursue romance and everything else. Right. But that's the problem, is you're trying to put this Webtoon type of thematic story into a monthly Superman comic. It doesn't belong there. The two are incongruous ideas. If you move that, look what happened with the Wayne Family Adventures that's all slice of life. It's kind of very family drama. It's all sort of romance and all these high school things going on. And that Webtoon is doing great. Take Jon Kent, move him over to Webtoon. That's the type of audience that book would appeal to. It violates everything that you're talking about with sales and marketing. Is you're trying to take one product and appeal it to the wrong type of audience. That book will probably do better with a Webtoon type of audience. Move it there, and then maybe you can make something out of it.
The only thing, Gabe, is that DC, and I could be wrong, but this is what I feel like. DC wants their Webtoon audience to be their new floppy sales audience. Like they want that young audience of, like millennials to be collecting floppies, and it's never going to happen. Their audience is like late 20s to like mid 50s, 60s.
Who are
like that's
used
their
to not
core.
paying for comic books now.
Yes, they've appealed to the broke communist market. Do you know what the broke communist market has all in common? They don't have money and they don't spend it when they do. So good job when you're creating commercial product.
That's pretty rough.
Seems like, that's like marketing to the homeless. It's probably not going to work out. It's not going to be a commercially viable thing.
You cannot convert one audience into another with a similar or same product. It doesn't work that way. It has never worked that way since the beginning of human history. different audiences like different things. When you try to take a webtoon type of story and push it at a Superman action adventure audience, it was predestined to fail eventually, sooner or later, depending on how it worked out. If you want to salvage Jon Kent, move him over to webtoon. Then take your regular Superman, keep him with the Wednesday Warrior crowd. That's the different audiences. You can't make one into the other. You can't merge them. That doesn't work that way. Different people like different things. You can't merge them.
One of my oh, go ahead. One of my favorite Marvel characters, Wolverine, if they put him on some sort of webtoon or the Marvel, like the scrolling phone app, I forget what they called that.
They did that. They
yeah,
did
like
the latitude or altitude, or it was the first.
yeah.
There was one entire issue was him falling from one space station to another. That's it.
Right. If I, even Wolverine is my favorite character, I still wouldn't move over to that platform to read him. But that new Fantastic Four book that they're publishing, they are doing a Wolverine series called Snicket.
Abrams is publishing that.
Yeah, and that's going to come out this summer. See, I'm going to collect that because it's still within that warehouse of graphic novels.
You're talking about the Wolverine
floppies.
You're talking about Wolverine
Snicked
manga.
Snicked.
Yeah, that
through
was
Viz Media. That's different than Fantastic Four.
Is it? I thought it was by the same publishers who did the new Fantastic Four by Alan. Oh, okay.
Hey, Max, that book was released by Marvel in 2003. It's already out there. You can go find the
okay, cool.
I think it was Kaya
I'm over here
Asayama.
saying
I think it was Kaya Asayama that might have done
Okay.
it. I don't recall exactly because I remember Kaya Asayama doing something with the X Office around that time. But yeah, it's already out there. He's wearing the black leather from the it was done about 2-3 years before they did the Wolverine or maybe 5 years before they did that Wolverine anime cartoon.
That's right. Okay.
So you can go find this book
fellas.
already in the back issues. Sorry.
All right. We've got a bunch of people chiming in. Let's hear from the audience. We've got a bunch of super chats. Thank you to everyone for supporting me here on the channel. And obviously, super chats are open if you want to support the channel and have your question read on air. Kyle Lyle, does Tom Taylor drink the same Kool-Aid as Jim Lee drinks? I think Jim Lee and Tom Taylor are two separate things. When Jim Lee was in his prime as a creator, everything he did was amazing. Even if the story sucked, his art was really good. I think Jim Lee is just ready to retire, and I think that's what his issue is. I think Tom Taylor doesn't fundamentally misunderstands who his audience is and is upset that they didn't accept his Superman. I think it's two different issues. JDC says, regarding the cancellation of Kal-El, in my opinion, it was a rebranding issue. DC, my license is characters and a need a consistent traditional Superman to promote. That was always going to be a hard sell, Gabe. The mantle swaps, everyone hates them. Even, obviously if it happens with Superman, even if you like Jon Kent as Superboy, you're not going to want the mantle swap, and putting Clark Kent on the Action title or Action Comics title and making Jon Kent the flagship Superman was a dumb idea to begin with, no doubt.
Yeah, we've had this conversation before about Spider-Man. We've had this conversation before about X-23. We've had this conversation Aquaman with Jackson Hyde. We've had this conversation over and over again. You can't just say, Sam Wilson with Captain America. You can't just come in and say this is the new version of character X, whatever it is. There has to be a turnover, and the old version of that character can't be around anymore. It doesn't make sense. You have two Captain Americas running around. It doesn't make sense to have two Supermen and two Aquamen and everything else. That doesn't make sense. Characters won't accept it because all you're saying is, here's my traditional Captain America, and here is a less good version.
Yes,
that's what it is. But you can say you did it for all the right reasons you can possibly imagine, but it's always here's the real Captain America, and here's the the backup version of the Captain America.
But they've already tried the alternative, which was shuffling the real one off stage, and everyone rejected that. But they won't accept that their replacement Captain America once again, we're back to people deluding themselves into refute and being absolutely refusing to accept failure.
Well, but you can do it, but you have to do it in the right way. I'll give you an example.
All right, we're not.
Scott
we've
Penn
already
with
talked about
Ant-Man.
We've already talked about it.
Yeah.
Kenneth Dowling with Tom Taylor. It seems the only thing he can write that's good is Deceased, and he did Batman the Detective. Right? He needs to move along. Deceased is a really good story. He can write stuff that's out of continuity still, but I think that's like a limit on what he's capable of doing well.
Well, Black Label, Tom Taylor's, like you just said, something out of continuity. He had a Constantine out of continuity as well.
Suicide
that's
Squad.
Probably his bag, and he needs to accept that. And if it
Dark
doesn't
Ages.
work, just move on. Yeah.
Yeah. He can do all right when he's given the right formula, but when he's left to his own devices, it never ever works out well, especially in continuity. Even his Nightwing, which isn't terrible, is not good. Johnny Jam Boogie, is it possible Soap would still be ongoing if it wasn't for Warner Brothers looking to cut costs and the money spigot was turned off?
What is Soak?
I'm not sure.
Superman, son of Kal-El?
Must be Son of Kal-El. Is it possible that Son of Kal-El would still be ongoing if it wasn't for Warner? No, I don't think it would still be ongoing. I think the sales are bad. Even Brian Michael Bendis' Superman, which was reviled by Superman fans, outsold this version of Superman.
Wow.
There were so many things going against it that they were going to have to reboot it one way or the other. And that's another one of the ideas with everything going on at Warner Brothers Discovery, that if it was a real hit and it was selling well, that they would reboot it anyway. Like, it doesn't make any sense. But I think that's
their
pretty
new
much destined to do that.
That's their mantra, right, Wes? This new regime coming in, if it's selling, they're like, they don't care if it's, pandering or whatever, like the Harley Quinn animated series, right? Hey, people are watching. It has an audience. Okay, do another one. Though some people dropped off watching that, but if it's successful, they'll continue. If not, it gets the hook. That's it.
Happy Steve says, at this point, John's book wasn't canceled. We're rebooting after Dark Crisis with the miniseries. Are you convinced yet? No? You bigot. Jon Kent is a success. It does exactly work as an argument. You know what I mean? It's ridiculous how easy it is to refute all this stuff. Like, don't believe you're lying, guys, kind of thing. That guy is ridiculous. Common Sense says, Tom Taylor messed up. People would be interested if focused on the plot line that John might be a tyrant, but he wasted 15 issues on Jay Nakamura. That was another huge issue, Gabe. That's the problem. It took him 15 issues to tell a story.
Yep. And
one story arc.
They told the wrong type of story, which is basically a heavy emphasis on the romance aspects in an action adventure comic. So the two, you can do mashups of different genres, but this wasn't this wasn't a mashup. This was just mostly a romance comic. And the second thing of it is, they had an opportunity here with Jon Kent to, when they brought him back from, under Ultraman's control for 7 years and all the emotional and psychological trauma, which they are now just getting to, which they should have addressed way back when, they could have done something interesting for him where he started out as a hero and eventually started to twist and turn into a villain and become maybe one of Superman's greatest arch nemesis or adversaries.
That would have been dope.
That would have been dope. That would have been an interesting story where he said, you weren't there for me. I'm trying to live up to the example that you never set for me. And in the back of his mind, maybe the seed is planted that says, the only person who was really there for me when I needed him, that even though he abused me, treated me well, was Ultraman. And maybe he starts to evolve to become like this Earth's version of Ultraman or something to that degree. That would have been an interesting story.
Well, but you need at least like 17 issues to do that, right?
Yeah,
they still didn't do it.
He wasted his time. Kenneth Dowling says, I agree with Gabe's assessment of She-Hulk's finale, and they brought Daredevil and they wasted him. I'm just kidding with you, Doc. I would love to see you uncensored. Did they waste Daredevil?
Yeah.
Oh my god!
Episode 8 with Daredevil, I kind of liked. Yeah, I kind of liked episode 8.
You like that?
When they brought him in. Well, yeah, I mean, it wasn't perfect, but it was good. Good character chemistry and everything else. In episode 9, he just shows up just to be there.
Yeah, the finale,
in the finale, he just showed up just to be there. And it was like, why?
I don't even understand.
I'm too upset. Don't talk to me again.
Charlie Cox Oh, sorry, Charlie
No, go ahead,
Cox. He's Daredevil. Like the reason why I think that episode worked is because Charlie Cox knows how to do his Netflix Daredevil, and for some reason it sounds like they had new writers on that episode specifically because he sounded like an actual character and not a caricature. Every man on that show is just an abomination. No pun intended to abomination character. But yeah, every man is just like, a weak coward or, evil or something. And Daredevil, when they brought him in, surprisingly, was not. So
Charlie Cox is always a win, right? That's
Exactly.
just what it is. But it's a terrible look because I'm looking forward to Daredevil Born Again. And I'm like, I don't want this slapstick stuff, carrying over, right? So.
Or a soft reboot of it, yeah.
Sigma Comics says, shout out from Dallas Fan Festival. Keep it tuned to Think and Critical and support the best comic book experts. Brought cool weather for purchasing. I'm ready for Here Comes Calico #6 on Kickstarter. I know that one's going to be coming out pretty soon. I've seen the cover. It looks pretty darn good, and I hope HH and the fellows from Sigma Comics are having a good time in Dallas. Having a pint with Perch and some of the other peoples around there. Definitely support those guys, and I really appreciate them for supporting the channel. Ryan Wilson says, using SJW logic, people only want stories about characters like them, so why would 95% of the population that straight care about LGBT stories?
Well, see, here's the thing. Okay, they could have made a comic, Jay Nakamura comic, right, and just made that into a story. Now, no one probably would have bought it, right? But I don't think it's just the sexuality is a problem. It's terrible story. Like you mentioned, have him become a supervillain. That would have been a great arc. Have him become a supervillain.
Well, I think he's trying to show the flaw in their logic. Well, this person has to write the character because they're the only ones that understand him. Or we need 5 different versions of Superman so everyone can relate to a version of Superman. Then they're like, well, why doesn't everyone want to read this? You can only relate to characters that look like you. It's all stupid logic.
You could find something. If it's a good story, you could relate to any character, no matter what.
Exactly. Yeah, it's a good point there, Ryan. Dylan Lindsay says, hey, all, I missed the first 15 minutes, so I don't know if you talked about it already. But did you see that clip of Super Sons on Twitter? Seemingly a traditional take on Superman. Sign me up. Yeah, they got in a lot of trouble. People are pissed off about it. Frank Hill? No, what do you mean he's not gay? Jon Kent has to be gay now in the DC Comics universe.
And he says, and Superman says, truth, justice, in the American way. I think that got more people just as much.
Ooh.
Yeah.
You're allowed to do that.
Fighting words.
There he is. Yeah. No, it definitely will get a lot of people upset, which it shouldn't. I mean, like, it's just a catchphrase that he's had for
none of
a
those
while
people
now.
know who Jon Kent is or any of his history anyway. They're just being upset to be upset.
But is it a lot of people that are
read
being
comics
upset?
either?
Is it a lot of people that are getting upset, or just a handful of
loud
weirdos on
people,
Twitter?
On Twitter, yeah.
I don't think it's a lot of people, and I think that's the problem. Is there?
It's a lot of people that aren't spending money.
Big noise doesn't mean big numbers.
It's the same person with 10 alt accounts. That's
That's
who's mad.
There's certainly some of that.
Drew with Comics Elite says Born of Blood #1 is going back for a second print.
Nice.
Well, congratulations, brother.
Congratulations.
Sounds like Merc Publishing is doing a really good job. I've heard you're outselling like DC and Marvel books. That's quite impressive. So congratulations on that. I know Gabe was a big fan. There's a review right now on Comical Opinions. If you want some information on Born of Blood, if you were maybe on the fence about ordering that book.
For issues 1 and 2.
1 and 2, absolutely. Common Sense says, remember Bart Allen was aged up to an adult to be the Flash. People criticize that in Bart back in the teens in kids shame. DC won't do it with Jon Kent. Where they kind of rebooted the character because it wasn't working out. They took a mulligan. They're not going to do that on Jon Kent. You can't do it now. They got all the headlines. The only thing that would be a bigger headline was them undoing it.
They would get more flack for undoing it than they ever got praise for doing it.
Oh yeah.
And you'll end up now they'll get better sales if they undo it. And I think what they need to do is just start accepting, hey, I mean, Zaslav at least seems to be not giving a fuck what the headlines say.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So maybe
he's a bottom line kind of guy.
Yeah. So maybe you I mean, but he's not going to get into the weeds enough
No.
Yeah, he's not
he
creative.
doesn't give a fuck about Superboy.
Mm-hmm.
The best thing they could have ever done with Jon after aging him up was let him become the DCU Superboy Prime.
We already had that conversation, Doc.
Yeah, I know, but they're no, but aging him down. Yes, they'll end up actually probably if they de-aged him and ungayed him. I don't know. I don't know what the fucking term for that.
All right, move along, Doc. Thank you.
Yeah,
Chris DeBliss says Doc hit it right there on Cluster B. The
boy.
majority of the creators have have these types of personalities.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, it's pretty
Any
obvious.
type of creative
Yeah, it's a
endeavor, you
personality
have to
type.
accept some failure every once in a while.
Mhm.
Even George Lucas in his heyday had Willow, even though that's a good movie.
Yeah, and
No
he
problem.
owned that failure too. And even Chris Claremont doing the novelization of it owned that was a mistake.
He did the novelization of Willow.
Yeah,
Oh man, it sounds amazing.
And it's coming back.
I know, but he because he did a interview about a month or so ago with some other comic channel, and he said, yeah, I had the opportunity to do this, and I did the novelization of Willow instead, and it was just kind of a joke, and it was very him recognizing that it was a poor career decision.
Sounds like the Hulk Hogan story where he was going to be the George Foreman grill guy, but he
Yep.
didn't answer his phone fast enough.
Yeah, totally.
Rodney Sanders II supporting the channel. Also thoughts of Joe Quesada coming back to DC. Keep up the good work. Weird Science, keep preaching. Thank you so much for supporting the channel. That's very generous. Joe Quesada coming back to DC Comics to do covers. Kind of makes sense, Doc. I think he'll do some good Batman covers. They need to have a reason to sell it because Jorge Jimenez won't be illustrating the comic book.
Yes, Joe always fit better at DC. He was a DC guy. He always was a DC guy. He should have been the DC guy. So him coming over, yeah, you'll never get him to do a fucking comic book like interiors again. I don't think he'll ever do interiors again. He's going to be J. Scott Campbell, but for DC and doing Batman variants. That being said, I mean, yeah, that's fine and all, but you're still going to end up with the same interior art, which isn't bad. I mean, Jorge Jimenez I guess he'll be still doing it sometimes.
He still is doing it? Okay, that's what I was about to ask. Jimenez.
I think he's still doing it sometimes. He's not the like regular almost every single issue artist. I think he's like splitting art duties because he's doing that shit with Mark Miller. But so he'll still be involved. So it's not like it's bad. But I don't think Joe Quesada doing Batman covers is going to help Batman sales at all. It's going to stay the same.
Yeah.
And they're also putting stock in something that if anything were to go wrong, like that's the end of that. Because like they're putting more of their stock or their eggs into the same basket. Like if Joe Quesada was coming back and doing something brand new, like where he was doing the actual art of like a different book, maybe I would get excited, or but like we're talking about variant covers again. We're talking about Batman again. So it's like they're just doing the same things over and over again, hoping for a different result.
Yeah, I mean, if we look at Quesada's tenure at Marvel and how he really hit big, is originally that started off with him doing, what was it, the Max line, right?
No.
The Punisher
No. Marvel Knights.
Marvel Knights, sorry,
Jimmy
Marvel Knights.
Palmiotti.
Right, Marvel Knights. So if Quesada comes in for DC and starts doing covers, and they all of a sudden said, "Oh, we're going to restart Vertigo and put Quesada in charge of Vertigo," because he has that ability to kind of take the existing characters and do gritty, edgier, more hard-hitting type of variants of those. That might be something to be interested in, but I can't see Quesada being EIC or anything like that. I think that's A, I don't think he would want the headache. B, if you look at how he performed as his role over at Marvel, doing a similar job, not impressive.
No,
if you look at how Marvel
I disagree. His first about 10 years as EIC were significantly successful for Marvel. Now, if they did now him and Jimmy they don't have Event Comics anymore, because the story with that was essentially the same thing that they had done with Lee and Wildstorm and Liefeld and Extreme Studios, or whatever the fuck he was calling it at that point, because he's changed that name like 4 times. Where they essentially, Marvel wrote both of them checks and said, you must deliver X number of these issues of these titles over this period of time. How you find the talent, do everything, as long as you get it to us to publish it. And it made Marvel a shit ton of money. And the same thing they did with Event Comics with a bunch of, but the street level characters. They gave them Black Widow, Daredevil, Nick Fury, and Blade, and the Inhumans, and Marvel Boy, who was a new creation. And Joe had the job of going out and finding talent to do those books and get them to sell. He had a financial incentive to make them sell incredibly well, because he also got points on the back end.
He's not going to be doing that for DC. He's just doing covers.
He's not. And now if they were to consider a similar deal for him, it might end up working out well for them, but they're not going to. And honestly, Gabe's right. He probably doesn't want that headache these days.
He's in charge of the Frank Miller Presents books. He's the publisher guy for them.
Yeah, so if you were to do something like restart Vertigo and put Quesada in charge of that, I think that would be interesting. But honestly, I don't think DC could afford it. To be blunt, I don't think they have the money for that.
Thank you once again to Roddy Sanders for supporting the channel. That's very generous. Drew from Comics Elite, deceased next week. One word, Lobo, the main man's back. Almost guarantee we'll talk about deceased. We normally talk about it in our best of the week segment. We'll probably be hearing about that one. Mr. DC Comics, Jon Kent as Superman was only made to troll people. It felt that way. That's the way it felt. And I think that was one of the big problems.
That's one of those, they try to be ahead of the curve type things too. I think they thought it was, about the headlines. That's what that was about.
Blade Kraber says, if you want to hear Perch do his closest Doc impersonation, go watch his video on New Mutants number 30.
Oh yeah, he lays in on that hard.
He lays a lot of bad comic books out from X-Men.
Yeah, he lays into that issue really hard.
By the way, I would like to give a shout out to Pornbot in the chat. Sorry, we had to mute you.
No, I'm not sorry. They had to block that person. That's terrible. Steak Bob manga. End your suffering. Great job, panel. We keep telling Doc, but he rather just give up comics for good.
I might have a manga title in my recommendations for this week. We'll see. Maybe.
Very nice. We got Nerdy Girl Creates Carrie in the house. At least the Jon Kent thing isn't as confusing as Velma's sexuality status.
Velma.
It's made some headlines. I like Scooby-Doo, but I don't like Scooby-Doo enough to to obsess over it. But yeah, that's the replacement art was pretty bad too. Let's put it that way. I don't know what they're thinking. We've got Dark Admiral March Hare. He's been like a subscriber since I had 10 or 15 subscribers. Off the subject, I heard a rumor that the direction from the Shell Batgirl movie is going to direct Blade. The director from the Shell Bat movie should be directors from the Shell Batman.
Yeah, the
Batgirl movie are going to direct Blade. It just keeps getting worse.
That Blood for Life wasn't that bad. They don't always make bad movies. I'm not going to say that.
Batgirl. That's what he's talking about.
That's the one that got canceled.
That's the one that nobody ever
directs.
It's
the same directors he's talking about.
Yeah.
It's also the same directors that directed the Ms. Marvel show on Disney Plus.
Ms. Marvel,
which was not great. It was mediocre, but it wasn't great.
From what I heard, people that it was aimed to actually liked the show.
Mm-hmm.
Unfortunately, it wasn't MCU fans. We'll talk about Blade a little bit here more in a minute. What's up, Doc?
I was going to say that's a good segue.
Kenneth Dowling says, to clarify, episode 8, where Daredevil disappeared, was the best episode in the series. They actually discussed Law because Matt Murdock was there, and Daredevil was a better superhero, but the finale was wasted.
Yep, 100% correct.
I'm glad I skipped it. All of it. I'm glad I skipped all of after WandaVision. I have not watched a fucking
Yeah.
moment.
The
Aside
first
from-
episode of Winter Soldier, Captain in Falcon is pretty good.
And then
Yeah,
they
that was
blew their
pretty good.
entire budget.
Yeah.
On one
That was awesome.
one
seeing that.
scene in one episode.
And GSP couldn't afford him
Yeah.
to come back.
Yeah, but the plot of the rest of that series just was dumb. It was just a dumb series.
Mhm.
What do you
Bad
think they're
villain.
going to learn from She-Hulk, Gabe? Anything? Do you think they'll double down and kind of do the John or the Tom Taylor treatment, where you're wrong, it's actually good, you just don't know it?
If I'm not sure, because honestly, Phase 4 for Marvel as a whole has been disappointing, just as a whole. So where do they go from here? And that's kind of strange when you consider this is like the juggernaut, no pun intended, of film franchises in the last 20 years at least, if not maybe even all of history. Where do they go from here?
Well,
I think
Harry Potter.
Well, yeah, okay.
No, even Marvel
James
beats
Bond.
that. The only thing that would be even close would be maybe Bond, and that was out over a longer period of
Yeah,
time.
but Harry Potter like dominated for like 8 years straight. Is my point.
What I think
Every
they'll do
movie-
is,
and Marvel
Broke
did for 10.
I think,
Yeah, the last 20 years, the two things that did
Yeah.
it.
Yeah, no, I get you.
if I had to guess, and I could be wrong, but if I had to guess, is they will silently, quietly make a bunch of changes on the back end about decisions they make for content, who they bring on as executive producers and directors and everything else. But you won't hear a word about it publicly.
Well,
They'll just say
Mm.
they'll just say they won't admit mistakes. They won't say we could have done this better. You won't hear interviews until maybe 20 years down the road when Kevin Feige writes his autobiography. You won't hear anything about it, but they'll just silently start making tweaks and adjustments down the road.
but
Where
if-
do they go? Where do they go with a season 2 or something like that?
Mhm.
Honestly, I think I hate to say it, but I think She-Hulk's going on the shelf for a while. If
But
I had to
if-
guess, she might show up in a film as
Yeah.
like part of an ensemble or like
Yeah.
a supporting character. If they go with Planet Hulk or something like that, she'll show up there. Will she get a
they'll
season
never
2?
make a Planet Hulk movie.
Season
it's
2 there
so-
probably is not going to happen for a while. I think that they're just going to shelve it just to kind of let things simmer down before they even try to do anything else.
Early rumor with the She-Hulk character, they may shove her in Daredevil as a slapstick cameo. That's one thing to keep in mind.
Yeah.
They can't do this season. They can't do this again. Like the
No.
backlash is going to be ridiculous if they try that.
Tevia asks, what happens if Battle of the Super Sons is successful? Well, therein lies the conundrum. Because there's no real like fidelity of the characters through mediums. Like we've even got a new like Asian version of Lois Lane coming out in kids' graphic novels. What if it's successful? Are we going to change Lois Lane and all the other mediums? You've already made a massive change to Jon Kent. You basically, given up on Super Sons. Now you've decided to do this animated movie that looks good. What if people actually like it and they want more Super Sons? Are you just going to go back and tell stories out of continuity where people know the ultimate fate of Jon Kent being a character that they don't want to read? Like they've kind of hamstrung themselves with all these stupid ideas. So that's kind of where they put themselves, Tevia. Common Sense asks, Wes, can you do a retro on Danny Bilson and Paul Demio's The Flash and with adult Barry Allen? Want to see a quality comparison with Tom Taylor's side? I do not pick out the comic books that we do in the retrospective. Joe Corallo and Eric Breed do. So if you can go find those guys on social media and let them know that you would like to hear that, they can probably do that. And I will mention it to them, obviously, but they're normally the ones that do the retrospective, like the picks as far as what we review. But I'm glad you enjoyed those. We will have one up tomorrow where we're talking about the Bizarro Legion. That's going to be a lot of fun. Thank you so much for supporting the channel. And I think we finally caught up on them. Thank you so much to everyone for supporting the channel. Really appreciate that one. Now let's talk about some Marvel Comics events, Doc. We got the event schedule for 2023. It only goes out to the summer, so we don't have the fall and the beginning of winter factored in yet. And we're going to have, at a minimum, 6 events, 3 of
One a
which
month.
are going to be X-Men, right?
Yeah, well, and they didn't even bother to put on that they're doing a fucking third Hellfire Gala.
Yeah.
That's not even
please
on
no.
the list. They already said they're doing one.
I'll talk about it tomorrow.
So they're doing a third Hellfire Gala. I wonder if they can actually they went from like 20 issues for the first one down to one issue for the second one. Is it just going to be like in one? It's going to be a panel.
They should do a Hellfire Gala covers and that's it, because that's the only thing that sold anyway.
It's going to be like the beginning of X-Men 280, Uncanny X-Men 281, where they're at the Hellfire Gala for like two panels until the Sentinels rip the roof off and Trevor Fitzroy shows up and tries to kill everybody. That's what it's going to be next time.
What about Dark Web? I have no idea.
That's not even on the list because it's a this year one. You
gotcha.
Sins of Sinister. You got Fall of X. You got
Captain America Cold War.
Captain America Cold War. Planet of the Summer of Symbiotes, which sounds fucking stupid. I guess it's because they couldn't do. I guess it's because they couldn't do Planet of the Symbiotes for a third fucking time. At this point, events. Look, you've reached the ultimate point where it was obvious that they were going. When everything is an event, nothing is an event. These aren't even events. They're just story arcs that they're now advertising a year out, and all they're doing is spoiling any sense of stakes between now and then. Because nothing important is going to happen to Eddie Brock or Cletus Cassidy before Summer of the Symbiotes. You know that nothing's going to happen to the X-Men before Fall of X. You know that nothing's going to happen to either fucking Captain America before they do the Cold War thing. Nothing. All they've done is said, hey, by the way, the next 8 to 12 months of comics don't matter.
Well, now on the flip side, let's say if I'm just mildly interested in trying to get back into Marvel Comics, again, Summer of the Symbiotes, you got me with symbiotes. I'm at least going to say, hey, I'm going to kind of look at that. I'm a little concerned about Sins of Sinister. I haven't really been following any lead ups to that, but should I be worried, Wes, about the Sinister storyline? I don't. I'm trying to.
It's going to be a lame ass version of Age of Apocalypse where everyone is sinister.
Yeah, I'll pass on that one.
If you actually want to do a good Sinister story, check out the Mark Silvestri Inferno.
Anything Mark Silvestri, I'll buy. Anything.
That's where you get some real good Sinestro.
But take a look at what they've got here. I'm looking at the graphic right now. So I'm not looking at the camera. I'm looking at the graphic. Avengers Assemble. That's basically putting an end to Jason Aaron's run. Dark Web, what is that? That's Spider-Man against Chasm, which is Ben Reilly. So it's clones against
with the X-Men.
Right, with the X-Men. Sins of Sinister, everybody's a clone of Mr. Sinister. Captain America Cold War, it is one Captain America with another Captain America fighting something else, and with Bucky with a man bun and who knows. So they're basically, all of these are derivatives, all either fighting with each other or fighting against each other. Some are symbiotes, it's symbiotes fighting against each other. Almost every single one of these events in the middles that bookend the first and the last event are all derivatives fighting either with each other or against each other. And if you hate derivatives, you're gonna hate the next 6 months of Marvel. You're just gonna hate it. And then Fall of X,
maybe Doc checked out then, huh?
Yeah, maybe Fall of X. Maybe Fall of X is the end of the Krakoa era, which is well overdue.
I doubt it. They'll find a way to make it the fall. They'll call it the Fall of X, but they won't leave the Krakoan era because the fucking clowns in that office don't want to leave it. They just want to have their drug dealing segregationist orgy island. That's it, because that's what they think that life should be. A hippie commune where you sell drugs and you segregate people.
That sounds terrible. Yeah.
Yes, I know it sounds terrible. And it also sounds like it smells.
Yeah. So I will say that the Summer of the Symbiotes, because there are so many different versions of the symbiotes, you could say that they're not necessarily derivatives. They're just other characters. But
especially if they bring Noel in there.
Especially if they bring Noel. But Venom is now King in Black. So I wonder how they're gonna kind of incorporate all that, because he can kind of sense all the different symbiotes around the universe.
I'm
at this
interested.
point, so.
I have interest in it. Out of all these, that's the only one.
Yeah, for sure.
And to be fair, it could be good. It could be good, but we've endured, I don't know how many years at this point, of everything focusing on the concept of a derivative. This version of the character versus that version of a character, or this version of Aquaman, Captain America, all these derivatives. So if you're kind of done with derivatives and you just want a cool character doing cool things, and you don't want all these derivatives mucking up the mess, you're in for a rough time. Is what I'm getting at.
It's because they don't have any fucking creativity. They can't do anything unique. All they do is just these are the people that basically their entire existence is palette swapping. They're the same motherfuckers that for 10 years were on Tumblr going fixture art, fixture art, fixture art. by just using the paint bucket tool in MS Paint to change fucking pixel tones. That's it. That's all these people are. There's nothing creative about that. Get the fuck out of comics.
They not only.
Oh, go ahead, man.
Oh, sorry. I was just going to say, not only do they like rehash and reboot and reconstruct characters, but storylines as well. Because if Captain America is any indication for the past like 5 years, all they've done with him is make him a mopey, like not courageous at all, sad, pathetic shell of a man, husk of just an individual who just walks around going, "What is America? Is America this, or is it that? What do you guys think America is?" And he's just constantly moping around like that. So I hope that's what they don't do in this new series. But I mean, if the past 5 years have been any indication, it'll just be that again. But sorry, go ahead.
No,
I didn't mean to cut you
good
off.
point with that. And the Fall of X, I have a hard time taking X-Men titles seriously, like at all. Like I haven't taken X-Men seriously since they messed up Wolverine's origin story, right? In my eyes. So it's like this Fall of X, like, oh, everything's culminating again, and I have no reason to
use
care
another
about
name for a book that people liked 20 years ago.
Yep.
Yeah. That's
Maybe 30 years ago. When was Fall of Mutants, Doc?
1985, 86.
Okay, so almost 40 years ago.
Yeah. I ain't keep up with
45.
the Judgment Day stuff, all this stuff.
Now, do you think that they'll be using Hellfire Gala in 2050? They'll bring it back and they'll go, "Hey, remember Hellfire Gala?
Remember this?"
I always think it's interesting. Yeah, when we look back at like 20, 30-year-old comics, like I always wonder, 20, 30 years into the future from now, like what are people going to say about this like iron age of books? It's so interesting. But yeah,
I think they're going to be looking at the covers and being going, they really did an event just so they could put covers of Bobby Drake and drag. He wasn't a cross-dresser. He was gay. Like, this doesn't make sense.
Maybe Captain America Cold War is going to be a series where Captain America gets accused of beating up Iceman as a hate crime.
Oh, no. Here's you know what? No, what Captain America Cold War is going to be Falcon falling off of a thing and then disappearing for 40 years, frozen in a block of ice.
What are the chances Winter Soldier gets relabeled to a new character? It looks like they're trying to make him some type of like Asian-inspired character now, Doc. I think they're trying to make him a villain. Like Thunderbolts, the movie.
Yeah. Honestly, I don't fucking know. And really, does it matter?
Well, it's a discussion. We're talking about the Marvel events. I think that's something that it looks like.
But does it matter?
Does it? But no, seriously, does it matter? Because they're just going to do whatever the fuck they want with him from month to month anyway. Nothing that is being done in comics right now matters because all they have to do is they're just going to pretend like it didn't happen so that they could do whatever the hell else they want to do. And then if it didn't work, they're just going to reboot it and act like it never happened. I mean, what the fuck happened to the... Oh, man. Holy shit.
He finally gets back. He unmutes his mic. That's bad.
Dear God, Josh.
Come on. There we go.
Josh is back, but it sounds like he's unable to speak. Something's wrong with his microphone still.
again.
Probably got to refresh. Yeah.
I need to buy
It's one of those days for Josh. Let's just put
I'm
it that
buying
way.
Josh a new fucking microphone. No, but they're just gonna. I mean, what the fuck happened to Immortal Hulk? Remember, he was immortal. Now he's a fucking spaceship. Just overnight.
Starship Hulk, Doc. There's
Yeah,
a difference.
okay,
That's
Starship.
Donny Cates, though. That's Donny Cates. And
I understand, but
Donnie's got things going
you
on.
built up all this whole new kind of status quo for the Hulk with him being immortal and this and that, and then just drop it to completely change directions. And Immortal Hulk might as well have never happened.
Here's something you could do with Bucky, right? So they're putting him in the man bun, putting him in the poncho, and maybe giving him a little bit of an Asian flair. I could see that as an opportunity to transition. Here's a mantle swap that would work. Transition him over to giving up the whole Winter Soldier vibe because of all the negative baggage that goes on, and he takes up the mantle of Ronin.
It's kind of like what it looks like when you see it. That's what I
Make
said
him
in
the
my
new
video.
Ronin. Make him the new Ronin because Hawkeye's not using it anymore. He's back to Hawkeye now. Make him the new Ronin.
Yeah, but have you seen Hawkeye?
Yes.
Look,
kinda
I'm
rough.
sorry, but the Ronin personality, the Ronin gimmick is about as useful to the Avengers as the Eric the Red gimmick is to X-Men. It needs to be forgotten. It's just you could slap anybody into it for a short period of time. It's stupid. It means nothing. And just no, don't do it. let the Ronin thing be what it was in the past, and pretend that they never got called out on it being Hawkeye from the first time it appeared, and then they had to slap Echo in a muscle suit.
All right, so we got Josh on the panel. It looks like his microphone's okay now. How you doing, Josh?
I'm doing well. You know what? I'm gonna say I don't think it's my microphone problem, because when I record with Max, my microphone is fine.
You saying it's me?
I don't know. Man. Maybe.
He
Who knows?
emphasized
Who knows?
Max.
That sounds like you accusing Max of something.
I was
I'll
about
be
to
honest.
say, is it?
What are you doing, Max?
Did
Trying
I
to
just?
make me look bad? You said I got shoddy production values.
I wouldn't. I didn't accuse. Now you're gaslighting me. Josh is calling me out on
What's with these
live
porn
live
bots?
He's
stream.
got some sexy.
I got.
There we go.
I handled it. Keep talking.
Of course, they come in right as Josh gets here.
Of course, look,
You
today's
stepped
been a
into
day,
the hornet's
man.
nest, sir. Not in
I
a mood.
I went to go, so I never do a grocery pickup, where you order and you go pick it up. And I was like, you know what? Fuck it. Let's just try it. Let's see if it makes my life easier so I don't waste an hour in there. So I do it. My car won't start once I'm there. My battery died. So I'm like, all right, cool. Go through that. Getting my battery out, it is in the worst spot you can get it out. It is in the far back corner, and it's under this hard plastic lip. So what took so long was trying to get the actual battery out and then get the new battery in.
Is it under the rain? Is it under the rain tray? Is it under the rain tray? Yeah.
Yes. Dude, it sucks. So anyways, I'm here. I'm happy to be here. I think I missed the gay conversation. Shame. Not sad about it.
It'll come back.
Yeah,
up
now
again,
we're
don't
talking
worry.
about, what do we call it? The man bun Bucky. Yeah. So
Marvel events in general, really.
yeah.
Well, they got so many of them.
Speaking of Josh's mic on my channel, Josh and I have actually done 2 or 3 videos at this point about Jon Kent. All of them have been Josh on fire. So those have been fantastic.
Was he
But,
flaming?
yeah, it sounds like you say again.
Was he flaming?
There's no need for personal insults.
Look, if you want to see a glimpse of me flaming, there is a Twitter thread somewhere where I recorded.
I wasn't gonna mention it, but
I recorded some responses to some people and some various voices, and one of them was a transvestite named Tina. So take that as you will.
You upset a transvestite named Tina?
No, probably.
Oh,
probably
you are the transvestite named Tina.
Yeah, pretty much. So
we were discussing my dating life, and Tina came up in conversation.
Flux, a lot of details we don't have about that.
Yeah, it's a whole different.
I feel like...
Well, let me get away from the no.
Wes is
Also-
like, all right, well, Max, it's great having you on the stream. Have a good rest of the afternoon.
And just so I can be clear, so that I don't completely derail the stream, this is on point because King KDI made a comment that they're turning Bucky trans. So there we go.
Could happen. I'm not
I
putting it
wouldn't
out
be
of the
surprised.
realm of possibility.
It's actually possible.
He's already trans. He has a robot arm. He's a transformer.
Wow.
Bucky turns into a lawnmower or something.
That's what he will transition into an android.
Yeah,
That's deep.
Yep.
that's deep.
So we do have some super chats. Let's get to hearing what the people have to say. Common Sense says we need to get an intervention to Marvel's Events Edition. Elliot Boggs, the magician, needs to reboot the X-Men in Fall of X.
Elias Bogan.
I think
think
you
that's-
misspelled that one, Doc.
Yeah.
They need to do something in Fall of X. If they don't end up ending that thing with that event, I'm going to be pissed.
I have no idea who Elliot Boggs is, but if he means Elias Bogan, like from like Extreme X-Men, I'd be okay with that. And we, you know what? I'd be fine to find out that Elias had fucking controlled Krakoa and managed to create a bunch of pod people X-Men to replace the real X-Men, and the real X-Men are still underneath the fucking island, and they're going to come out and none of this shit ever was real. I'd be good with that. And all the ones that went along with this that weren't replaced now become villains, because the real X-Men show up to tell them, people are fucking insane. How did you go along with this shit? This is nothing like our dream. Get away, and you're all villains. And then, or we just kill Moira and restart everything.
She's a robot
Forever.
now. I can't do that anymore, Doc. Although
No,
there are clones.
Yeah, there's clones, so kill her and then kill baby Moira so that she doesn't grow up to fuck shit up, and this whole stupid Hickman era can be over and have never happened.
Common Sense meant addiction, not addition. In there, clarify a little bit up there. Doc says, like the smash button. Absolutely. I think we're at 160 likes right now. Hopefully we can get up to 200 by the end of the stream. If you've been watching it, we've been well over 350 live viewers pretty much since about 30 minutes in. Definitely give us a thumbs up, like the video, and let everyone know that we're having a great time here. We got Sil Abdul in the house for the first time on the channel. First time of many, hopefully.
Yes,
Kenneth Dowling says, this is not in 2023, but I am interested in Dark Web. I've said this before, but I think Chasm, if written well, can be an interesting supervillain.
No.
He certainly has a good look, Doc.
He has a good look, but the whole thing is you can't just keep having the opposites of existing heroes as their main villain.
Mhm.
It becomes
That's why I
tedious.
dropped out of the
very-
Flash season 3 or 4.
Yeah, because
Whichever
all it
one
is
the
just a
speed
different.
god showed up in.
Yeah, it's just a different evil speedster. The same
Mhm.
way that like Doom is fine in that he's kind of the mirror of Reed Richards, but he's also they made him so much bigger than that, and Chasm won't be anything more than just the mirror universe fucking Peter Parker. And look, we've already had a handful of those. You already have it in
Venom.
in Venom, you already have it in Norman Osborn, you had it in Harry
Mhm.
Osborn, you had it in the Hobgoblin, you had it in Dr. Octopus, and even when they made him the Superior Octopus, that just made it even more on the goddamn nose.
Oh, the Superior Spider-Man? Oh, no, okay. Are you talking about
Superior
something else?
Octopus. Whenever Otto ended up in a clone Spider-Man body, but with his, when Peter was back
Oh, that
in
was
his own
Superior
body.
Spider-Man. Yeah, that was
No,
awesome.
No. Again,
I'm talking about two
This is
different things.
serious.
Okay.
you are we're talking about two different things.
Gotcha.
It was after the clone conspiracy where
Yeah,
Ben Reilly was the jackal and making clones of everybody.
totally different story. Okay.
Otto, this is after Peter reasserted himself and took back over his own body.
Gotcha.
Otto was inside of a fucking robot that looked like a clock, and Then they put him. He ended up in a Peter clone body, but with the Dr. Octopus, the Doc Ock haircut, which looked terrible. He was also a Nazi for a little while. I guess he was also because he was in Hydra.
All right, Doc.
It was not good. But my point is, just having yet another mirrored version of the hero does not a good villain make.
That's
well,
true.
I can't have said it's well written.
Writing.
Yeah, exactly.
Perhaps it could be successful. Cal Stravelli with the €5. Thank you so much for supporting us. Bendis should have made Jon Kent meet the Superboy version of Clark Kent on the Legion. They fight, and Clark learns that he will be a father with Lois. That would have been an actually interesting story. And they would have done something neat with the character. Everything Bendis did with Jon Kent ended up like leading to his demise.
As long as Clark Kent Superman doesn't wind up on his knees during that issue, then I think we'll be in good shape.
That is a rough comment, buddy.
Can't
goodness.
guarantee that.
Like that's his son. Like,
I know.
Exactly.
Jesus.
Nobody wants
That's
to
a
see
Doc comment if I ever heard one. I didn't expect you to say that.
demonetized.
Hey, I very rarely will make an incest joke on this fucking channel.
Yeah, it was rough.
Yeah, to be
We
fair,
got
I think
Frank.
I'm the one that says incest is best and keep it in the family. So
I need you to turn down
thanks,
the list
guys.
about
This
2
is,
notches.
We've got Frank Zanka, the sponsor of today's video, in here. Hey guys, thanks for the shout out for Tales of Ravenor. I'm a big Storm fan, but X-Men Red is just not good. Is she going to be in the new Claremont series, Doc?
Who?
Storm.
Oh, Storm.
He's got
yeah.
Then he's got the
If
the
it's
other X-Men
if
series.
it's Extreme X-Men, I think she's in that because she was the lead of that title whenever it was being published as an in continuity story, like a contemporary continuity story, but like the flashback story that they're putting this in, like set in the past. I don't know. I haven't bothered to look at any of the covers because I'm done with fucking new comics and I'm not even gonna buy that.
Yeah.
But what about X-Men Red? Was that the first signs that Tom Taylor should never be given an ongoing series ever again?
Yes, but he's talking about the current X-Men Red, the
Al
Ewing
with
one.
Storm.
Yes.
As far as Storm, I'm expecting Storm to get pushed a lot more. Word is the MCU, Feige wants to push Storm, kind of like the X-Men Gold run. It's like Storm, the leader of the X-Men. So you may start seeing Storm popping up, pushing her to the.
They've been
forefront.
trying to. They're making the exact same mistake with Storm that they've been making with every other female character that they want to be important and to be a headliner, which is make her more powerful, make her just force her into a more high profile position instead of making her challenging her and making her suffer. Storm was the best when she was running around with no
She
powers.
just lost
Still
an entire
leading the
planet of Iraqi mutants, Doc. That's pretty suffering.
Yeah, I don't care. It's not personal suffering for her because she has no connection to them. She got
Magneto
installed.
died.
She got installed as the queen. Magneto has been one of her biggest adversaries for her entire life. So him dying in her arms, there's no deep emotional connection for her. There's no real suffering here. It's just forced. It's artificially forced because there's nothing there that she's lost that she actually gives a shit about. It's like trying to make us give a shit about her and T'Challa. That came out of left field too. And guess what? It didn't make her more interesting, and it doesn't make her, there's no stakes to her relationship with T'Challa because she knew him for about 7 minutes before they got married.
Yeah.
Well, I do want to say thank you very much to Frank Zanka for supporting the channel and sponsoring today's video. If you want someone that's not going to take shortcuts and actually has a good female hero that you want to learn about, her name is Threa. It's in the Tales of Ravenor, and it's live on Kickstarter right now. And we've got a special video for you. Let's hit this bad boy. You already know I am an enormous fan of fantasy comics, books, movies, all that stuff. Award-winning screenwriter Frank Zanka and Destiny Horizons have a new crowdfunded YA fantasy novel you're gonna want to check out. Tales of Ravenor, The Iron Witch on Kickstarter. You probably recognize Frank from his Destiny Aurora graphic novel, Learn the story of Threa, a seemingly common woman with a magical past, as she explores the realm of Ravenor and its kingdoms. If you're a fan of magic, dragons, action, all that good stuff, you need to support this book. Go to Kickstarter today and back Tales of Ravenor, the Iron Witch YA fantasy novel. It really would mean the world to me if you could support the sponsors of Thinking Critical, who allow me to keep delivering the best comic book content on YouTube each and every week. Well, there we go. You missed that one earlier, didn't you, Josh? Looks pretty good, doesn't it?
It does. It looks pretty fantastic in Fantasyland.
Are you able to read books without pictures?
Sometimes, sometimes. I struggle every now and then, but usually I can get by if I have plenty of caffeine.
Wes, that would normally be a question for the Marine in the room, because we are notorious for eating crayons and not being able to read without any pictures. So that's how I got into comics in the first place.
Well, I know when I was working with the Army guys, they had comic books on like how to do their guns and stuff. I was like, I thought you learned that.
how to clean their weapons. Okay,
Yes.
Step 1. Yeah.
How not to get in trouble. I'm looking. Apparently, I lost a super chat from there was a character fight from Kenneth Allen.
Yeah, I don't
Oh,
recall
yeah,
who
Iron-
it was.
Apparently,
Oh, no,
it
it
happened
was,
much earlier. My
I think it was
goodness, how
Luke
did I do this?
Cage versus.
Oh, Luke Cage versus
Tombstone.
Tombstone. Yeah.
Yeah.
So two people with unbreakable skin.
Mhm.
All right, Doc. Who
Uh,
wins? I say Luke Cage.
I say Luke Cage.
I
Savvy
say
Luke
Luke Cage as well. However, I mean, if you're just talking a one-on-one street fight, yes, Luke Cage. If you're talking like an actual story, I think Tombstone might be able to do it because he can start calling in fucking henchmen that Luke Cage does not have.
And he
Luke
beat the piss out of Spider-Man recently.
Yeah. He's also smarter than Luke Cage. He's like more manipulative. He's not just a dumb thug. He's a legit boss. I think that would be a one-on-one fight. Yeah, Luke Cage wins because he's stronger. Period. They both have unbreakable skin, but Luke Cage can probably knock him out.
Doc, the only legit boss that I know of, her name is Sasha Banks. All right, let's not be throwing that title around on other people that didn't earn it. You know what I'm saying?
I don't care.
Doc, did you not like the portrayal of Tombstone in the Into the Spider-Verse film?
Wait, Tombstone was in the Into the Spider-Verse movie?
I don't remember that part.
I remember
I thought
Kingpin in
was,
it.
wasn't
Remember Kingpin?
I thought
remember
Tombstone was one of
Doc
Kingpin's
Ock.
henchmen.
If so, I legitimately
quick.
forgot
I don't
he
either.
was even there.
Yeah, if he was there, it was
Okay.
really quick.
I could have sworn he was in that, but I'd have to check it again. But
All right,
Josh, are
Gabe,
you
who you got?
fact-checking me?
Luke Cage or Tombstone? Remember, Luke Cage is the mayor, and he can bring in like, the feds and stuff.
Yeah. I don't count henchmen and allies and all that. I'm putting them pound for
One on
pound.
one.
One-on-one. Honestly, I kind of like Tombstone. I think Tombstone would take it just because he would fight dirty. He would fight dirtier than Luke would, I think.
that's what it
Good
is.
point.
And he would do something like he would try to ram his fist down Luke's throat or something like that and try to yank out his tongue. So he may have unbreakable skin, but everything on the inside ain't so unbreakable. But Tombstone is like hitting a piece of rock. So I think I got to give it to Tombstone.
Fiend Machine thinks that Tombstone was actually in the PS4 Spider-Man game. Not
Yeah.
He was
Somebody-
into the
but somebody-
Spider-Verse.
He was.
Somebody-
Yeah.
Somebody else said he got his ass kicked by Spider-Man Noir, and just like
Oh.
basically he was there for like 10 seconds.
Maybe it did happen.
Wow.
There you
I
go.
just shot you a picture
Still-
of this character.
Still, who you taking? You taking Tombstone or Luke Cage?
No, I'm going with Luke Cage. Yeah, I just think
Power Man?
again, even if the fight gets dirty, I think Luke Cage will take care of him.
I would definitely put him in his original costume too. He looks so much better with like the headband and stuff on.
Power Man.
So good.
You mean the tiara?
It's not a tiara.
The tiara with the yellow.
I like how the Netflix
Tiara
show kind of
rests
make
on
fun of
top of
that.
your head. That clearly doesn't do that. That thing is,
Oh,
is
okay.
for superheroes.
Fair.
It's a headband or a crown.
The
It's a metal
puffy
headband.
the puffy shirt needs to be there for Luke.
No, I just want the chain belt. I want the belt made out of chains.
Yeah.
There we go.
Josh, who you taking?
I think I'd go with Luke Cage. I think Tombstone would play dirty, but I think Luke Cage, I think if he needs to play dirty, he can come back and play dirty.
And
He's got the power of the people behind him too. So, you know.
and Luke is not afraid to put it in somebody's ass. We can ask Jessica
Jesus,
Jones.
Doc. Okay. This is what Kenneth Dowling has to say. He picks Luke Cage. Luke Cage is stronger, tougher, knows how to fight. Tombstone has been hurt by stronger foes, and Tombstone was in Spider-Verse. No big part. There you go.
God, if
That's
this
all
is
the picture.
if this is the conversation we're getting with this, I can't imagine the conversation that I missed earlier. You know.
It was good. You missed some
sure.
good stuff, man.
Yeah.
You live and learn. You get your opportunities, but sometimes you miss them. So, Kenneth is going with Luke Cage. I'm going with Luke Cage too. Lade Kramer says, I am worried for Rogue and Gambit, the new series coming from Stephanie Phillips. Are they doomed? I'm guessing this will end their sort of marriage. Well, Gambit's been reborn from Otherworld, so he's not the same person anymore. So there's a pretty good chance, Doc, that Gambit's going to be gay. And
Yeah,
Rogue is
probably.
gonna try and fix him.
No. Gambit's going to become a furry now and think
fuck.
he's one of the cats and start peeing in his cat's litter box because that's his entire personality is I like the cat.
How sad is it? How sad is it that even the articles and people who wrote the solicitations couldn't tell the difference between Teenie Howard and Stephanie Phillips, and that they continually were just like, "Oh yeah, we don't even care who's writing it anymore. It's just one of the women of Marvel."
Stephanie Phillips, Stephanie Williams, Leah Williams, Vita Ayala, Danny Lore, Teenie Howard. They are literally interchangeable. They are the exact same way I view Jerry Duggan and Cullen Bunn. Exactly the same, and Jim Zub, the exact same writer with a different skin on it. Like, I mean, it's literally like, going into a video game and reskinning your character.
Anybody that's a fan of Rogue and Gambit, and Rogue in particular, Gambit in particular, should be worried. Let me put it that way. I read Harley Quinn. You read Harley Quinn, didn't you, Josh?
Yeah. Well, no, not Stephanie.
You read parts of it.
I did. Very little though. I mean, the what was it? Future State was enough for me to say no, thank you. And then I checked out probably 2 or 3 issues of the regular run, and I jumped ship real quick. That was the beginning of my like, F this, I'm not reading crap. But I will say this: when this announcement came out, it was like a double terrifying event for me because I saw it on Twitter and they had her handle instead of her name. So I was like, oh God, which Steph is this? So I clicked on it.
Steph Smash is her.
Yeah. And I realized it's Stephanie Phillips. But then while realizing it was Stephanie Phillips, I also realized that Stephanie Phillips is dating Brian Azzarello.
Yep.
And Smash.
Oh.
And that it was 2 nightmares all in one. So
Interesting.
yeah.
Congratulations.
It's
Josh,
blatantly obvious.
Well, speaking of Harley Quinn, you had said something a while ago about Harley Quinn outselling Superman or something. Was that?
Yes, because it did happen.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. All right.
But I mean, you're talking about Derek Chu covers, and Peach Momoko covers, and movie poster variant homage covers.
Are you talking about that weekly event that they did where all of a sudden it jumped in the top 50?
Yeah.
He's giving me shit from a previous stream. That's what he's doing.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Inside jokes, is it?
No, it was on your stream.
Yeah, it was. I wasn't actually here. It was on. But I did watch it. It was very entertaining. I will say that.
When I was sequestered for receipts. Multiple times.
Oh yeah, I got you.
Okay.
Yes.
Interesting stuff. We got a couple more things to hit. Should we do the DC layoffs, or do you want to talk about Henry Cavill Superman? So,
yeah, let's give the people what they want. Henry Cavill.
all right. Well, we've got it confirmed from The Rock. He spoiled his own movie in the after credit scene for Black Adam. Henry Cavill makes his return as Superman in the DCEU. Sil, you broke this like 2 months ago. How the hell did that happen?
Oh man, I tell you, it kind of just fell in my lap. To be quite honest, I did nothing special at all, and so, but basically, we get production tips from just different people. Me and my co-host Mikey Sutton, who he runs GeekOutCityMag.com. He throws all the comic and geeky stuff out there, and so someone got in contact with me because they watch my channel. I do DC, and they said, "Yo, do you want to know when the Trinity is going to show up?" Now this was like in July, really, when it was like, do you want to know when Superman comes back, Batman, Wonder Woman? I'm like, yeah, like obviously, I do DC every day. So they mentioned Batman and Aquaman, so I got that scoop right there where he showed up on set. That was confirmed a couple of days later. Wonder Woman is going to be at the end of Shazam. It may be a blink and you miss it moment. Okay. And then he was like, Superman. He was like, I know the rumor is there's a faceless cameo. You're hearing these test screenings that there's no Superman. He's like, no, it's Henry Cavill, and he's going to have the Man of Steel suit. All right. And then they told me exactly how, if y'all saw the leaked footage that you couldn't help but see it on the internet where he comes out of the smoke and dust. They literally told me that in July. Right. So I put the story out there. Everybody's like, BS. And I was like, hey, I think this person's pretty connected. And then you see the scene. Cavill's back. Now, there's a couple of big things with this. The Flash film that's coming up, because I have that story as well, that they're inserting Henry Cavill into the third act of the Flash film. That Flash film was going to erase Superman. Right? They were going to make it Supergirl going forward, no Superman. And then on top of that, insult to injury, they was going to do a race swap separate Superman with J.J. Abrams. Like, come on now, right? So the fact that Cavill is back is canceling out the race swap pandering Superman, and it's putting Supergirl kind of back to where she should be, with her cousin, not replacing them, right? So big story. Like I said, everyone's kind of catching on to that. And now Black Adam, they leaked it on purpose. And that scene is really, if you saw the end of Super Pets, that's literally what the scene is in Black Adam. Just saying, if you know that post-credit scene. But now Black Adam is going to start tracking better because of this leak. And hey, I think The Rock may have a hit for DC.
I was actually just about to ask, do you think that they put Superman in there to boost the ratings for Black Adam, or do you think they put Superman in there? Okay. All right. Because that's kind of what I was thinking as well. And that's kind of what you're alluding to is like, if they leaked it, they obviously want people to go see this film for multiple different reasons. And Henry is one of them.
Think of recent examples of Venom, Let There Be Carnage. They leaked Tom Holland, right? That scene at the end, just say, hey, we're connected to the MCU. And all of a sudden their projections went up to like 90 plus million domestically, right? So right now, Black Adam, before the leak, was tracking 70 to 75 million domestic opening weekend. I'm pretty sure that's going to hit like 90 or more now because, hey, Superman's back. And then the new regime, David Zaslav says, DC is going to be restructured. We're canceling Batgirl. We're shelving this stuff. And Superman's going to be like the beacon of DC. So this is the new regime. This is their first project they're putting out DC since they took over. So you got to put Superman in there, right? And so the next obvious question is, when's the Solo? So I'm waiting on that information, but it's coming. Cavill signed a new contract. He wouldn't do this if he didn't sign a new contract. So that's going to be a big movie when they finally announce it.
I had no idea that he signed a new contract. That's great.
Yeah, he's back.
That post-credit scene is literally he just walks in front of the camera. That's it. I mean, that's all it is.
Literally,
that's all he does. It is the movie equivalent of a variant cover.
Oh my god!
It has no bearing on the film itself or the storyline, and just by adding that in, they probably boost their ticket sales by about 20%.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah,
just because of that. Just because of that.
If you think about it, though, like ever since they they announced that Rock was doing this back in what was it, 2008 to 2011?
He's been working on this for 10 years. He's been working on this.
It's been going on for a while, and the big conversation that's been going on is that they want these two to fight. They want to see these two together, right? And then you have the falling apart of Snyderverse and everything, and then there were the rumors that Henry Cavill's hard to work with, and then the negotiations were going on. You had all that going on, and it seemed like a year and a half ago that it was done. Like none of this is going to happen. And I think you had enough of a separation thanks to various delays for various reasons that it kind of let all those waters kind of calm a little bit. And I think Zaslav realized, like, hey, this is what the people want. We're in the business of giving people what they want. Yeah. And this is going to serve as a tease to hopefully lead to seeing these two characters go against each other. But I think what we said, they're fully aware that if we just do something real quick, pop it in here, it's going to build this excitement. It's going to boost the numbers for the current Black Adam. Make sure we get what we need to so we can have a second film. Like all that came into play. So it just 1, 2, 3. The moment they said they were pushing the film back for CGI, I was like, oh, you mean Superman? So that's what they were doing. But yeah, if anyone was going to be able to make it happen, The Rock has a lot of pull and a lot of power because he's reliable at the box office. So,
and I think
plus
he got
his wife
Cavill
is
a
also
pretty nice
Cavill's
contract.
agent.
Yeah, well, that
helps, right? That helps,
100%.
Well, his ex-wife, right, Danny Garcia. But I'm sure they broke the bank for Cavill too. The former regime was not budging. This negotiations was nasty for 6 years, really. That's why Cavill got that knock. Oh, he's so hard to work with. He don't want to be in the first Shazam because that would have been his last cameo. His contract would have been done, and then he's he's been holding out for 6 years. And playing a hard bargain, building up his international stardom on Netflix and doing things like that. But you're not gonna make this type of money with Netflix. What he's can do being Superman. So he bet on himself, and once those details come out, I think he has a crazy contract for this.
I'll preface by saying I really have enjoyed Henry as Superman. I think that the content that he's been given and the dialogue and script has been unfortunately lackluster to him as an actor, but I think it actually does show his acting abilities of how he's been able to still be Superman to the best of his abilities, even with what he's been given. But I will say that I do think that this is a bit lazy, kind of like what Gabe was saying. This is the variant cover to get the 20% increase in sales or whatever for the film, because if they actually really did want to incorporate Superman, they would have either written him into Black Adam or written a film for Henry. So I still think that this is Zaslav prepping the company or prepping the fans for something.
We're in the military. It's the battle space.
Yeah, prepping the battle space. There you go. Thank you. For 2024, which is what Josh alluded to a while ago, which is Comcast is going to come into the picture in 2024. And if that's the case, and I think that was actually another thing that you were wanting to talk about today, Wes, but that kind of wraps into the whole DC, Warner Brothers, Discovery, Comcast maybe in the future. So I don't know.
Yeah, it's fair to say this is like a tag-on scene because that's literally what it is. Because again, the merger just closed the middle of April of this year, and then right before that they pushed this film back. So it was only so much time they could tag this on, right? So like you said, it has that effect. Like, oh, okay, they just tacked this in there, but again, it's showing they're putting their first foot forward. Like, no, you're going to see Superman. You're going to see his face. This is our Superman going forward. So though it may feel rushed, I think it was a good gesture in a short time.
Got to be better than what they did in Peacemaker.
Well, yeah, that was awful.
Exactly.
I will say
the biggest mistake. Yeah, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna go ahead if you're gonna talk.
No, I was gonna say the biggest mistake that they can make now is to not manage the message.
Yes.
So what this little cameo, let's call it a cinematic variant cover, if you will, does, it says we still have faith in Cavill as Superman. The biggest mistake they could do is to not control that and somehow imply that they're going to reinstate or expand the Snyderverse. It's not the same thing. If they say we want to make Superman the character, the beacon of hope for the DCEU going forward, great. I'm behind it. I like Cavill as in that role. He's been given terrible material, but I like him in that role. But if they come back and don't control the message and say, okay, well that means maybe we're talking to Zack Snyder again, and maybe the Snyderverse isn't dead, and maybe we're going to continue all the things that's release the Snyder cut version of whatever he had planned for Man of Steel 2. That would be the wrong direction, because that would just kind of lead down in the path of continuing the division, continuing the toxic fandom nonsense, and all that other stuff. If they want to say we're keeping Cavill, we're keeping him in the suit, but it's going to be a fresh take going forward, the beacon of hope, the spirit of inspiration, everything that Superman is supposed to stand for. That's the direction we're going. That's the message they need to push, and they need to push
Right.
it hard, and to say whatever came before, we're gonna move forward with hope. That's what they because if they let that go and just let rumor and speculation go wild without controlling it, that would be a big mistake.
They can get ahead of this though, because if Cavill can start speaking about Superman, because he's been kind of real holding out because of the contract issue. But what I think is going to happen, part of this deal, Cavill got creative control as part of his contract. The same thing that Jason Momoa got with Aquaman 2. He got his executive EP credits on there. Gal Gadot got that with Wonder Woman. So Cavill was holding out.
Not good for 1984 though.
It didn't work out, did it? But all what Cavill should do now is come forward and say, okay, he said this before, my idea of Superman. All respect to what Zack Snyder did, but if we're going to kind of do like a rebirth approach here right now, like a reboot, but
I think it's going to be Flashpoint, right?
Something like that, like everything happened before, but we're kind of, Cavill has his spin on it. If he gets out there with that messaging, like you said, that will kill. Like, okay, well then is Zack going to do this? Now again, I love what Zack Snyder's done live action. Like I think he's had the dopest live action DC stuff I've ever seen. But I think it's clear. Zaz have said they want to expand the DC world
or Superman 2.
No, I'm just saying for me, right? For me, Man of Steel, I think is wonderful cinema, right?
Visually pleasing.
Visually, yeah. The visual side of it. I'm not talking about the story. So, and I like both. But I'm gonna be honest. The visual is the key thing for me. But if they're really going to expand this DC brand, grow it, well, that's not what Zack Snyder was doing. So that could kill that narrative, like you said. But they got to be more upfront with what they're planning with this next film.
Yeah, I fully think the intention of this post-credit scene is to kind of serve as like Thanos at the end of Avengers when he says, "Fine, I'll do it myself." I think having Superman walk through the smoke is pretty much a promise, and hopefully they're smart enough to uphold it. Of like, okay, hey, this is coming. We heard you loud and clear. You want it. It's coming. I do think that whatever their plans are, I do think they're going to be more short term than long term though. Because in a way, we've kind of already wasted 10 years of Henry Cavill as Superman. So.
And that's a good point though, Josh, because that was my fear, is that was this going to be a cameo for cameo's sake? Because Marvel loves to do that shit where like they have like a face of a character, or they like have a character walk across the screen, or just like say one line, and all the people start clapping and all the key jangling and all the member berries, and everyone starts going, "Oh, I know that character. I like blah blah blah. Like that character was this thing in this movie or this book," and it's for naught though. There's like no depth to it. It's just to make the seals clap, and that's what I was worried about. This
PSA.
I thought that was actually kind of funny. I'm not gonna lie.
In the Captain America movie?
How about Howard the Duck at the end?
He was in Spider-Man when he got in detention, right?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, but I like the Captain America PSA because if these heroes existed, they'd be tapping on them to be like, hey, you like kids look up to you. Can you do a PSA about like don't do drugs? Like that would happen.
But
that's
that's almost as crazy as Marvel putting out a Pfizer booster shot.
I think that's crazier.
That would never happen. That would.
I'm not talking about the one where he's in detention. I'm talking about the post-credit scene with him just doing the fucking PSA at the end again. You sat through the whole fucking credits just to see the same goddamn thing that was on that. It was just a different version of the same thing.
Yeah,
I got a serious question, Josh.
Yeah,
I'm going to get to see my first movie in over 3 years.
Yes,
we've been stuck here. We were locked down here in the Philippines longer than you guys were in the States. I can tell you that. We're finally going on a family vacation. It's going to be happening in November. I'm going to have Black Adam and Black Panther 2 to watch with my 7-year-old. We're going on a dad and son date, I guess. Which one should I go see?
I think Black Adam is going to end up being more fun. I do think Black Panther is going to end up being a better film. And the reason I say that is Marvel seems really good. They just pulled the premiere forward, and whenever you see studios doing that, they feel good about what they're putting out. So they pulled their premiere forward. They're having it early. They feel pretty confident about it. It's clear that they don't feel confident about a lot of the other things they're doing right now because they're in change. And this seems like they've been pretty set. And I think this has more to do with what Ryan Coogler is bringing to the table above anything else. But I think for him, this was such a personal film. I think the reason we don't have a new T'Challa is for him and for the cast. They needed to have a moment to do this in honor of Chadwick Boseman. And I get that it shouldn't be a funeral. I get we shouldn't present it or market it in that way, and it can be kind of tacky. But these are real people that worked with this man, and they were with him, and were there with him for years, and they created something that was, for all intents and purposes, extremely special. And I think for them, they needed to say goodbye.
It was just Thor 1 again. It was the exact same plot as Thor 1.
I mean, maybe, but look, when you have a studio that sets a premiere date and then decides they want to move it forward, I think that's very telling. And I'm making this statement too, knowing what the early talks of Black Adam is, and that it's, people are saying it's fun, it's action packed. There's not much substance there. And I'm okay with that. Like, if I've got a superhero movie that really delivers on action and I'm hearing like, hey, the JSA is pretty awesome, I'm good with a good like fight fest. If it's entertaining, I'll take it. But it's gonna be one of those things that I just throw on for like mindless comfort food every now and then. But if Black Panther's got some good story elements in there and they deliver, like it seems like they believe in the movie, we could have something good. So
Hollywood has a lot of misplaced confidence a lot of times. So just because they're confident in it doesn't necessarily. And additionally, I just need to correct you. The reason that they haven't recast Black Panther is not to give Chadwick. It's because they haven't signed Leonardo DiCaprio yet.
Look, since some of this stuff is coming out, when we were back in July when I was in Florida, and I talked to Kenneth. So what I had heard was that for this film, who you think is going to be Black Panther is most likely going to be Black Panther, but there's probably going to be some other
little twists,
other little surprises of people. But it was my understanding that their intention was always to find another T'Challa, just not for this film.
Yeah, they have to recast that eventually.
Absolutely.
Give him this movie, right? Coogler's a good, I think he's a good visual storyteller too.
Same.
And
And
get this epic out there and then recast.
Like, he's a good storyteller. He can direct incredibly well. And they brought the cinematographer from Loki, and that was pretty much the only good thing from Loki. And when I saw Loki, I remember thinking, Jesus, they should get this guy on films. And hey, he's here in Black Panther doing cinematography. We're gonna get a.
How about the writer writing Secret Wars? The writer of Loki.
Well, you can already say that Secret Wars is going to be shit. So
yeah.
So we do have some super chats from the peoples. Let's see what they have to say. Cal Bile says, the joke and message of She-Hulk, haha, F you for watching. We wasted your life for 9 weeks and you're an incel. If you didn't watch it, poor Scott.
Yeah.
Did you watch She-Hulk finale, Josh?
I did.
I don't think Gabe can take talking about it again. What did you think about it?
I mean, look, we have very similar takes, because
don't go spreading that around. That's not.
No, I meant for the She-Hulk finale.
Okay.
Yeah. No, it's one of those things that like the best thing that could have happened to She-Hulk was episode 8 and the way they structured it and the way they filmed it and the tone and the energy that was there. And then you have this finale come through and you're kind of like preparing yourself and hoping for the best and kind of just carrying that momentum. And it does everything but that. And then even when it's, still going through the plot, it's just so outrageous and they lost everything that they had. And I can't remember, there was a reviewer that commented on this and I couldn't figure out what it was that I didn't like about it. But they made the comment that everyone in She-Hulk is a character of themselves except for Matt Murdock. And the reason that the Matt Murdock episode worked so well because he was an actual character. There was some actual depth there. You related to him. But everyone else was just a character. So then when you get back to that finale, you lose that feeling of realness and it goes into this just psychotic story that they then like hit the pause button and go, hey, we can't really come up with a good way of ending this. So we're going to make a joke about it, not ending this. And it's going to be, cheeky and funny and hey, meta. but the writing was so terrible that they didn't execute that well. And they didn't set up the fourth wall breaking well enough to this extent earlier in the show to justify how far they went in this last episode. So,
Yeah, I heard somebody else, another reviewer, just like a film reviewer, kind of going over that episode, and they said that the part of the problem with the fourth wall break is she breaks the wall, goes into the writer's room, and some of the real writers and producers are in that room because I recognize some of the faces. And
Zeb Wells was in there.
Zeb Wells is in there. Cody Ziegler's in there. Jessica Gao, who's the showrunner's in there. But the problem is, she said, this all sucks. You need to fix it and change it. And she goes through that whole thing with Kevin the AI. But when she goes back into the story, they didn't pick up where they left off, but changed to suit her. They just sort of skip it all. Yep. So everything that was supposed to happen just happened off panel, didn't happen at all. And everything just gets thrown out the window. I mean, it was a mess. It was a mess.
So are we shocked that the people running the show that showed disdain
don't say something
for the reader?
Don't say something about women.
Not. Are we surprised that the people that showed disdain for the readers ended up showing disdain for the viewers too? Are you fucking shocked by this?
No one is. No one is.
No.
Kev Dowling says, you guys know I'm a Marvel guy, but I like Henry Cavill as Superman and was thinking of seeing Black Adam.
Good choice.
Now Henry Cavill in Black Adam has me intrigued and gives a Superman sequel for Cavill.
Yep. That was the point. That's the point.
He's got a pretty damn good look for Superman. It was nice seeing a buff Superman. I kind of like that part.
Yep.
Seeing actually Superman.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. But are we going to see Shazam in Black Adam? That's the question.
Eventually, they're teasing a eventual crossover, like that animated short, Superman Shazam versus Black Adam. So I think they're going to take elements of that in the future. They're setting all this up if Black Adam's successful. So.
Well, it's The Rock. It's got to be successful. Mm-hmm. Although he normally has his biggest success when he comes into a franchise that already exists. Black Adam's kind of a new thing.
Well, that's why you need Superman, right? That's
the DCEU is a semi-established and but falling apart
franchise.
Collapsing franchise, and he is franchise Viagra.
Yep.
The only thing he couldn't save was G.I. Joe. That was awful.
And you know what? The second G.I. Joe, if they wouldn't have gotten rid of Duke, would have been a dope fucking movie because everything else about that movie was good.
The first 30 minutes were just killing off a character because he had become popular in the meantime.
Yes, and they couldn't afford him anymore. But they would have kept Duke for the rest of the movie. All the rest of that movie was real. If they would have had Duke, Roadblock, Scarlet, Snake Eyes, and Falcon running around with Joe Coulter and Cobra taking over America, fuck yeah, that was a dope ass movie. Mountain climbing ninjas.
I want to see Billy meet Adam. That's what I want to see.
Yeah,
I love the Shazam movie. That's probably my favorite movie in the DC EU, even better than Wonder Woman.
Yeah, and the Shazam, Black Adam, their origins are it's shared DNA. And to not have Black Adam and Shazam in the same movies would be a mistake.
Yeah.
That's what I would.
Should already did it, to be quite honest. Yeah.
Should have
Henry Cavill back as Superman. Sign me up. I think that's what they're hoping people are saying.
Agreed.
It's a variant cover.
They got to give him a script that's right for Superman, though. I mean, that's the problem here is we haven't gotten, in my opinion, a good depiction of Superman and what Superman stands for.
No,
here's where I bet is happening. I'm also like a data analytics guy because I'm always looking at the reviews and the sites and how they're performing and everything else. I guarantee you, there's at least one, if not two, or more people sitting that they're looking at Google Trends and Google Analytics and everything else for Black Adam. And then once the word of Cavill's cameo gets out, they're looking to see if they see a spike. They're looking to see if they see a traffic bump of interest. And they're saying, look, what the hell?
I'm sorry, it's a dog. It's an Alaskan Malamute.
Yeah.
They sing very sad songs of their people.
I thought Doc was turning into a werewolf or something.
I thought he had a husky.
Hey,
Malamute, same difference.
Yeah,
pretty much.
But I guarantee you, there's at least two or more marketing people that are just sitting there saying, "Let's see how Black Adam's doing. Let's see how many people are looking at Black Adam. Let's see how many people are seeking out Black Adam information." And then as soon as the Cavill cameo news gets out, they're saying, "Okay, do we see a spike?" They're looking for interest. They're trying to find measurable data that says people are interested and now more interested in Black Adam because of Cavill's participation. And I bet you that they're just sitting there, and then once they see that spike, they're going right after it.
Kyle Miles says, on mantle swaps, why not call Shuri Pantherus? Pantherus.
Ugh.
To be fair, it's comic book precedence of Shuri being Black Panther, but Namor
There's also comic precedence for that failing
in the comics. Yeah.
It wouldn't surprise me. I don't have anything to back this up. It wouldn't surprise me if in Wakanda Forever we see Storm show up in a cameo.
I wouldn't be surprised either.
That makes
I
sense.
wouldn't be surprised either.
Interesting.
I'm going
What
to
if she says, I'm T'Challa's wife you never knew about?
That'd be terrible.
I didn't say it would be a good surprise.
Just make Lapita Storm if you're going to do all that, you know? Like
I'm going to say the same thing. I know I sound like a goddamn broken record on this. What doesn't work in comics will never work on film. They don't have a magic formula for figuring out how to do the thing that failed in comics right on film. They can fuck it up less than the comics did, but they will never do it better because the comics had a lot more time and a lot more attempts at it for a lot cheaper of a price tag. It's the reason why nobody gave a fuck about the Eternals. Nobody gave a fuck before the movie, during the movie, or after the movie. Nobody gave a fuck about Shang-Chi. He's already forgotten.
All right. So what was your rebut there, Josh? It looked like you wanted to say something before we moved on to the next one.
I was just gonna say Kate Bishop.
Kate Bishop is a better version in
better
in Disney Plus than she is on the page.
So there's hope. But your examples are spot on. I'm not gonna argue those.
Kenneth Dowling says, with Josh's assessment, Black Panther Wakanda Forever could be pushing for Best Oscar nomination. I might see it. I will check out Black Adam. And yes, Doc, Leo for T'Challa.
Goddamn right.
What do you think, Josh? It's going to get Best Picture nods? What's going on here?
I don't know if it's going to get Best Picture nod. I think the first one kind of managed that. It's going to have to be really good story to get that. They're definitely going to get some.
Dark Knight got Best Picture nods, and obviously there was a death involved in that one too.
I mean,
although that was much closer to it.
But it was posthumous.
Yes. Yeah. We'll see. I don't, as a film, I don't know if it's going to get Best Picture nods, but it's definitely going to get a lot of technical nods. So.
Yeah, costume, makeup, etc.
Yeah,
that's what they'll never give a superhero movie an actual award. So they'll when it's the right movie and they want to fillet a dead actor or actress, they'll give it a
Bird or Birdman get an award.
That wasn't a superhero movie. It was a movie. It was a movie about a superhero movie. And it was a movie about Hollywood, and Hollywood always fillets itself.
Well, was Dark Knight really a superhero movie? Technically, you know what I mean?
Well, I mean, it is. I mean, there's the argument that Batman isn't a superhero; he's a vigilante. But other than that, no. I mean, by every measure, it's still a superhero movie. Yeah. They'll never give it a real award. They'll give it some technical bullshit award so that it can say thank you to a dead actor or actress that was involved in that film, as long as the film's good. I mean, it has to be good, but it'll never get a Best Picture, Best actor or actress, or any of those big awards.
Gotcha. Cal Lyle says that was Jessica Gal's 4th cameo in the show.
Okay.
So she did talk about this in an interview. So I didn't realize this, but they filmed all of She-Hulk before 2022. Yeah. So when they were filming, they were still in super strict COVID rules. And, a lot of times you have a ton of extras you can just have on hand, and they're just waiting. They're day jobbers. They get paid I think $100 a day to just sit there and wait. But because of COVID, they couldn't do that. And people had to be tested 24 hours before, then quarantine, then come in, get tested again. So if they needed anyone to jump into a scene because they realized they needed more people in the scene, they would have to pull from crew because crew were already tested. They couldn't get anyone in time to film it. So that did get explained in an interview that made sense. I don't think she's full of herself. But I also know this show's very different than what it was supposed to have been. It got hacked up real bad.
Yeah, we've also got Frank Zanka.
Yeah.
Frank Zanka says, with the way they destroyed Namor, I'm giving Black Panther a pass. That's definitely a reason not to watch it. Still, it doesn't look like a real portrayal of Namor. If people keep calling me a racist because I said that doesn't look like Namor, that means I'm a racist.
Well, you know, it's social media, but Namor is obviously a change. If you're a comic reader, you see the change, you see the political messaging they're trying to do, and they got their audience with that. But I'm not going to this thinking like, oh, this is going to be hardcore Namor, and I hope I'm not too disappointed seeing this.
Yeah,
Go
ahead.
No, go, Josh.
I was just gonna say I'm still holding out to see how he acts, like what the character is like. Because if the character acts like Namor, I'm perfectly fine. Because they were upfront with saying, hey, we're changing his look and we're changing it because of Aquaman. They've said that in multiple interviews. They didn't want it too similar. I understand that. I get that. And then you've got crap. I can't think of the actor's name. He's the one that's been taking the like. Yes. So he's been the one that's been coming in, kind of doing the whole like, social. Yeah.
Yeah, he's Brie Larson.
Saying it. Yeah.
I guess. Doc, what were you going to say? We got to start.
No, I was just going to say, Namor just needs to look like buff Spock with ankle wings. That's it. That's all you had to do. Buff Spock with ankle wings, and in a Speedo. That would have differentiated him significantly from fucking Jason Momoa. Clean shaven Spock with ankle wings wearing a Speedo. Yeah. Nobody would have confused him. Nobody would have confused the characters.
Yeah. I do want to say thank you very much to Frank Zanka and Destiny Horizons for sponsoring today's live stream. They've got an ongoing Kickstarter campaign for the Tales of Ravenor, the Iron Witch. Definitely go check that one out. It's not a graphic novel. It's a real novel. If you like words, if you like prose, this is going to be the project for you. Definitely go check that one out and really support the sponsors of the channel. Really appreciate that one. We got one more guy. Internet guy says She-Hulk was so bad I couldn't even hate watch it. I think a lot of people have gotten to that point with the MCU, which is unfortunate because feels like you have to hate watch most of it right now. So thank you very much to everyone for supporting the channel. I think we had a good show here today, but it's time to start wrapping this thing up and start talking about some comic book recommendations. Gabe, you said you had some recommendations earlier. What are you recommending this week?
I do. But first things first, shameless plug, of course, comicalopinions.com, weirdsciencedccomics.com, Weird Science Marvel comics.com. Please come read our reviews, enjoy them, leave a comment,
support the Patreon if you want some more of that juicy gossip.
Exactly. And and also just, participate, leave comments, just follow us and follow along, and we're happy to talk with comics with anybody, anytime. I have 3 recommendations, nothing for DC. All the stuff it was for Marvel this week. I'll give it to Daredevil #4. It was a little bit of a quieter issue with Chip Zdarsky, but it sets up a lot of big things and it changes the relationship status of marital status of Elektra and Daredevil in the most unique ceremony you've ever seen, probably. I think kind of enjoyed it, and I like the potential that it establishes. So there wasn't a whole lot that happens in the issue, but I like where it's going. The second recommendation I'll have is a graphic novel. It's Stan Lee's Alliance's Orphans from Dynamite. It is all-out hardcore sci-fi, and it was really well done. I was surprised. Sometimes people will slap Stan Lee's name on things just to get it, but Luke Lieberman, who's one of the writers, he had a fairly decent relationship with Stan Lee, and Stan Lee helped write the prologue before he passed away. This was from years ago. So that was a really good, well done sci-fi epic story. Like it had big universe type of implications to it. The third one I'm going to recommend is Adam, the Beginning, Volume 1 from Titan Comics. It follows a college student whose last name of Utamoro Tenma, and if you recognize that name, it's a prequel to Astro Boy. So it follows the professor who created Astro Boy during his college years when he was developing all the robotics and all the genius stuff that will eventually become and lead into the creation of Astro Boy. And it's 200 pages, but it reads super quick. Lots of action, plenty of heart, and I would really recommend you give that a shot.
Very nice. Who else we got? We got Sil Abdul. I know you're a big DC fan. Are you a comic book fan? You got anything that you think people should be reading?
Definitely. I'm on catch-up mode with a lot of comics. So the newer stuff, I'll probably pissed off 2 months from now about some of the stuff y'all saying with these comics. But I have been catching up with the Mark Waid World's Finest. Beyond the
series.
White Knight as well too. I'm loving anything with Azrael. My ears peak up like, hey, what's going on, Azrael?
There's
So,
a Dan Waters
I'm liking it.
series with Azrael right now that you'll probably like.
Interesting.
Very interesting series.
So
Sword of
catch up
Azrael, I
mode
believe,
there.
is the name of it.
And then I kind of went back and catching up with some Scott Snyder Justice League. So I'm in catch up mode, folks.
Very nice. Definitely check out Sil Abdul's channel. If you haven't subscribed yet, there's a link in the video description. You can go find it. He's got all of your DC news that you've been waiting for. We've got some recommendations from Kenneth Dowling. He's recommending Batman 128. Love the issue, but villains taking over Gotham all the time makes Batman kind of ineffective. Enjoyed the show. Peace, guys. Well, thank you very much. I also loved Batman 128. I felt like just as a singular comic book issue, it's like 5 stars. The art's perfect. The story is really great, but it is retreading a story that's been told 3 times in the past 2.5 years. That's the only issue I personally had with it. Glad you could join us today. I hope you guys are doing great. Glad everything worked out during the storm and everything. And we will have Kenneth back on the channel before the end of the month to talk about Chasm. So that'll be a lot of fun. Josh, what do you recommended this week?
So the only thing I've read this week so far that's new is Daredevil number 4. So I back Gabe on that. I picked up Batman vs. Robin. So hearing Gabe say the DC stuff was crap makes me nervous. I'll tell you
I
what,
didn't love the first issue, and I love this one a lot less.
Well,
let's put it that way.
Basically, it's a recap issue.
Yeah, I think I was just hoping for the best, but it looks like that's gonna let me down. I'll tell you, I did not pick up Batman Incorporated because that can go into a dumpster fire. Get rid of Ghostmaker, get rid of Clown Hunter, flush them down the toilet, and come back with a better idea.
MVP Maxfield Bod Priestley. We got anything going on in your channel that people need to know about? You got any interviews, any good in-depth analysis with Josh?
Well, I've got plenty of stuff with Josh. I've got some great interviews with a couple other incredible voices within this whole comic book industry and on YouTube and stuff. So yeah, no, I've been taking a break from the channel a little bit because a few things in the industry have broke me with Rings of Power, She-Hulk, Women of Marvel, EVS
Marvel
versus Mark Brooks. All this stuff just kind of broke me for a while. So I was like, I need to step back and take a break for a second. But in terms of, comic book recommendations for this week, 2 came out this week that I would say are like must pickups. And that's Do a Powerbomb issue number 5 and Prodigy Club issue number 3 or 4, I believe they're on.
Are you talking about the Icarus Society?
Yes, yeah. So the Mark Miller one,
yes.
That has been a great series. His dialogue is just like perfection. Everything flows very smoothly. The artwork has been really great, and the concepts that are introduced in the series are very like high end, very knowledgeable, very intellectual, which I like a lot. And all the characters are very interesting. So I love that. And of course, Daniel Warren Johnson's Do a Powerbomb is just like, it's like everything that he does with Murder Falcon, with Beta Ray Bill, with, Extremity. He continues to produce like the highest creatively exciting stories and art. So you get like everything that you're looking for in a comic book, which I love.
I definitely need to read that.
If you haven't read Do a Powerbomb still, and you have any interest faintingly in wrestling or comic books, you need to check it out, buddy. It's really, really good.
Yeah.
Gotta pick that up.
All right. Last but not least, Doc, we reviewed Black Panther number 10. Are you recommending that?
No, and neither am I in recommending the next issue, which is apparently also number 10. At least according to Marvel's advertising in the back of the book of this issue of number 10. You get number 10 again, but fuck it. No, I am recommending you purchase 0 new comic books and you only go and buy back issues. In fact, actually what I am rereading right now is Absolute Planetary volume 1 and 2. Planetary, it was 27 issues. Perfect comic books. It was Warren Ellis's love letter to 20th century fiction, set through a superhero lens. Each issue is sort of standalone, but they all tell an overarching story combined in the end. One issue's ode to John Woo Hong Kong action cinema. The next is an ode to 1920s pulp comics. The next to 1950s science fiction. The next to Looney Tunes. And the bad guys are essentially the Fantastic Four.
Very nice.
It's essentially perfect comics. You can find them relatively cheap. This is one that I definitely recommend if you can find the absolute editions. Pick them up. They're well worth it. And yeah, that's what I'm recommending right now. And I'm recommending that you drop all of your current comics. Send a fucking message to these clowns.
Doc and I are going to have a conversation about that in full. I'm not much about it. It's mostly Doc conversation tomorrow on the channel. After this, I will have my recommendations for the week at about 5 p.m. Eastern time. So definitely check that one out. We're going to have a lot of fun with that. And definitely a huge thank you to Frank Zanka and Destiny Horizons for sponsoring today's video. Definitely get out there to Kickstarter. Let the big two, let Hollywood, let entertainment know that you're tired of it. You won't take any more bad stories and start supporting good quality creators out there that want to create the best stories for you in mind. If you're a fantasy fan, definitely go check out The Tales of Ravenor, the Iron Witch, live right now on Kickstarter. And we'll see you next week right here on Thinking Critical for the Comics Aficionados.